Hey everyone, just want to take a minute before we get into the podcast and thank our sponsors of the Forge and Brains podcast. We've got Yukon Forge, World Championship Blacksmiths, Farrier Box, and Wellshod. Without them, the podcast wouldn't be possible, and they help us to bring shows and more episodes to you guys and continue to do it. So appreciate you guys showing the support, and throughout the episode, you'll hear more about what they do and how you can help show your support. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to the sponsors of the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Forging Brains podcast. It's the episode you guys have all been waiting for here. It's the Koons Part 2. Or really, it might be like the Part 3. Because the first one was a good old chunker. But we're happy to have Travis back. It's been 2 years, almost exactly, since the last time we had him on.
Yep.
And so it's kind of cool to have like a little bit of break in the time, and Koons will have some more stuff to talk about, some good ideas and everything. Where we kind of left off last time is we kind of just went over the whole entire competition world, pretty much, at Travis, like his upbringing and everything. Like kind of what me and Gavin always talk about is like, even though we've been doing this for about 3 years, we feel like we've just introduced characters to everybody almost. And now we can kind of start getting a little deeper into things with the next time they're on. So we're excited to have Travis back. Thanks, man, for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Master Koonzagi, back.
Dude, I laughed so hard back at myself listening to that episode that I actually thought that was a real person. Like, someone,
right.
Like that it was like somebody from a movie. And I was like, oh, you idiot.
I am real, dude.
Yeah.
I am real as can be, man. You're realer than the movie people. The movie samurais.
Well, what have you been up to since we talked to you last, Travis?
Oh man, there's been so much life happened since then. Probably the big thing is we got a new house since then. Got a new double wide manufactured home put on our
Okay.
property, and
Nice.
we started that I started that whole process five or 6 years ago, and it's just I spent years designing a house I was going to build and working with architects, engineers, all that stuff, and then when it finally came time and we got all the kinks worked out and had something we were happy to move forward with, then we got the pricing in, and that was with me doing most of the work, most of the framing, most of the forming, most all the dirt work, plumbing, HVAC, everything like that, roofing, siding, and it ended up like bare minimum. It was going to be like $300 a square foot.
Dang.
And my wife Nicole was like, "Man, we didn't move out of California to Arizona to get into a ton more debt, like,
Yeah.
and then you got that time it takes to build it, when I'm
Yep.
not working and all that." And she at that same time, my brother-in-law had bought a manufactured home in Texas, and I talked to him, and he told me it was like $74 a square foot,
It's a
and
big
I'd seen
difference.
it. It was a nice house. I was like, "Dang, that's a huge difference," and they'll be in it in like a month or so, and I'll be building this thing for like a year or two
Yeah, at
Yep.
least.
if all goes well. And so I called that company that because I'd looked at the manufactured homes up here on the mountain where we live, and they cost just as much as what the house I was going to build would have cost.
Yeah.
And so I called that company there out of Oklahoma and asked them to give me a bid for one that had 6-inch walls and 40-pound snow load roof and the best insulation they could do, and then delivered out to Arizona from Oklahoma, and it came back like right around 105 bucks a square foot. So it was like a no brainer, man. Let's save a couple 100,000 and be in a house in 6 months instead of a year or two. And so
Yeah.
so I
So
started. I got serious. Got
they
to work.
drove that thing? They drove
They
that thing from Oklahoma to Arizona.
Yeah, without a pilot car, man. The trucker was gnarly, man. He
Wow.
was a dude out of Texas. Uh, Reminded me of Todd Walker's brother-in-law Phil. Man, looked just like him, sounded just like him, big old dude. And he snuck this thing in on back roads, man, with no pilot car. And he did 2 trips back to back. Like he dropped the first half off And I was like, so when are they bringing the second half? He was like, oh, I'm going to get it right now. And I says, oh, okay. So maybe like in a week. He was like, no, I'll be back like tomorrow.
Oh, damn.
Like, what? And sure enough, man, he was back the next day. Like, I couldn't even believe it. And I had
That
to
is
pull like,
crazy.
so, we live out here like, a couple miles from power, we're like 15, 20 minutes down dirt roads and, tons of, on our property, there's probably 6,000 juniper trees. So I had to pull like 200 trees just to widen the road and make some straighter turns and stuff to where you can
Yep.
get a 70-foot long trailer around it.
Yeah.
And so the whole process, man, is like I've been building roads since we bought this place in 18. When you got a mile long driveway, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And whoever built the original one, man, they put it through like the lowest part of it goes through like the lowest area of the property where all the water kind of goes to. So I've been
Yep.
building that up forever. But yeah, so I mean, between pulling trees and doing all the dirt work, all the underground, did the foundation and stuff myself with some help from my uncle, and the kids and Nicole built the whole solar system, the whole off-grid solar system.
Damn.
Put all I had a big old 40-foot Connex box that I turned into the mechanical room for all the solar components and the
Yeah.
plumbing, like water pumps and stuff. And yeah, we did basically right around this time last year is when I was really getting down and dirty with all the dirt work. Did all the trenching to hook up to our existing septic tank that we put in years ago, and then hook up to the well and all that stuff. And as soon as we did all the trenching, and also dug out under the foundation because we got clay soil, so I wanted to dig it all out down to bedrock and then refill with good compactable fill, and then pour
Mm-hmm.
the
Yep.
concrete. Uh, so anyway, I dug all that out, graded the septic trench line, all that stuff, and then it rained like crazy, man, for a couple days, and I mean
Monsoon
filled
season.
in everything we dug. I mean it was like level with water. Even the 4 or 5 foot deep trenches for the septic were like rivers,
Yeah.
man. So I had
Damn.
to redig everything,
Did you
regrade
have like
everything.
conduit already in it too? So it's
I
all
did.
just
I
fucking
didn't. No,
floating.
I
Just
didn't have that.
like,
I didn't have that. Luckily.
oh
So,
yeah. You're like,
but
God damn.
yep. But yeah, we got that all done, and then got the house brought in, put that on the foundation. The only people I really hired was just the guys that joined the house together. They just leveled it up, put it together, joined the roof, and then I did all the inside stuff, all the drywall.
Oh, nice.
Uh, yeah, my stepdad, he's a contractor. He came and helped with the concrete pour and kind of came and inspected my forms that I set that me and my uncle said. He came and checked all those. And I just did it with like a 6 foot level.
Yeah.
And he came out with his laser level and he was like, oh, we're probably going to have to do a lot of work to get these forms level. And he went around it with the laser level. He was like, dang, man, I wouldn't
Heck
change
yeah.
Yeah.
anything. I was
That's
like, dang,
cool.
that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's been the big thing for the last couple of years was just lots of construction and learning new stuff like building solar systems and
That's
From
it.
you know
Yeah. That's what I was interested in. So you're saying you're not on the line on the grid then?
yeah, no, it'd be probably 160 to 100,000 bucks to bring power in.
Really?
So yeah, it was way cheaper to just do the solar, and then if it ever does, if somebody else like one of the neighbors out there brings it closer, then it might be worth tying in. But
to split the cost.
uh, yep, yep, yep. But for now, it's
That's
like the solar is
crazy.
pretty
They
cool.
don't like. You would think like here, like I had new power ran to the shop when I got the bigger power hammer,
Hmm.
and like they gave me like they paid for the whole entire. All I think I had to do is dig the ditch
Wow.
because they were like, oh, we're gonna make enough off of you over this amount of time you use in
Uh,
power. So
huh.
like, but I guess probably not every state does that. But
Yeah,
that's
no,
what I
definitely.
would think they'd want to hook up to you because they're like, man, we're more than happy to gain a new customer. Like,
Yeah, and it would to me it would make sense because if you bring it over this way, then all the other people that are off grid could tie in, and you'd end up with a bunch of customers.
yeah.
But
So how much solar do you have right now? Like how many panels do you have to power your house? Like that's always been
so
something kind of interesting to me.
yeah, that there's a lot of different ways to do it, and they have panels that are all different wattages and stuff. But what I've got are like 20. The array is 20 panels, and it's a ground mount. That was quite a project too. The way that was all engineered, I had to basically put a whole truck of concrete just in the footings for the posts that hold the ground mount, which
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
crazy. They're like
Well, I would
three
imagine
three
they
inch
have like
posts.
a lot of like wind shear.
That's the big thing is wind uplift, because
Yep.
I think it's at a 30-degree angle, and the wind
Yeah.
hits the high side of it, it could just rip it right out of the
It's
ground.
like a
So
spoiler just sitting
yeah,
up there.
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. So yeah, I guess ours would basically be like a 20 kilowatt system.
Hmm.
So, but it basically we've got way more than what we need. Like during the daytime, like you could do anything. You could run a welder. You could run the shoeing truck off of it with the
Okay.
bow door grinders and stuff. Like no problem. Be vacuuming in the house, all that sort of stuff. I really screwed up because I bought it. I bought the system back in 2020, and the idea was I was going to come home and put it up, and then we were living in an RV on the property at the time, and then we'd have power. But
Yeah.
I called the building department to see about getting permits, and they were like, "Oh, you got to have the house built before you could do the solar." I go,
Huh.
"That's really stupid. If you're building a house, it'd be nice to have power, and you're in
Yeah.
Yeah.
this off grid location." And they're like, "Nope, that's just the way it is." Well, I got mad and kind of said my piece with them and hung up, and so then I just stored that unit for three almost 4 years, until I finally put it up. Well, by the time I put it up, like at the time I bought it, it was all the biggest, best stuff. The inverter was the best inverter you could get. It
Yeah.
was big, and the guy was like, "Oh, you'll be able to do anything you want with it. If you need, uh, if you want to run 220 in the shop, then you could just add another inverter later. If you want to run three phase, then you could add another inverter, and it's expandable. You could add in batteries anytime you want, like because it's a lithium ion. So, like if you use the old school like lead acid, you have to replace all the batteries. You can't replace one.
Okay.
But with lithium, you could throw a new one in anytime you want, and
Yep.
it won't be degraded by the age of the old batteries, which is cool. But so by the time I started installing this stuff, I got a 12K inverter. Well, now they have a 15K and an 18K. They're only a couple
Technology is
$100
evolving
more.
fast.
Yeah, they're only a couple $100 more, and they're like EMP hardened. So if you have a lightning strike or an electromagnetic pulse, like no big deal.
No,
Like
sir.
all this, yeah, you get all this better stuff now for way less money. The batteries I
Yeah.
had were the best. They were the best batteries at the time, but now they have a new version of them, so they discontinued that, and you can't hook up their new ones. That when I bought them, they were $3,000 each. Now they're 1,500 each, and
Wow.
they're not compatible with the old ones. So I'm like, oh man, but it's still
Oh,
a
I
cool system.
bet.
Like it,
Buying it in 2020, it had to be everybody was probably trying to buy fucking solar at that time. Like it had to be so high
yes,
in
that's
demand.
another good point.
Yep.
That's
Like, so I imagine it was so expensive, but like, dude, that's the sucky thing about any technology. It's just like, wait 6 months and you're fucking outdated. Like, it's just happens so fast.
yeah, that's totally right, man. And like this weekend, this week I just finished hooking up our backup generator. I bought a Cummins 13,000 watt backup generator that runs off of
Big
propane,
dog.
and it ties right. It's sweet. It ties right into the inverter, and then the inverter acts like its transfer switch. So if in the middle of the night the batteries get down, like you could program it whatever level you want. I've got it set at like 50%. So if they get down to 50%, that thing will kick on, charge them up to 95, and then shut off automatically.
Oh,
That's
So
cool.
nice.
that's pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
From start to finish,
Yeah.
how long did this process kind of take you from like, instead of building your own house, you said maybe like 5 years or whatever, how much time did this save you by going
I
this
said a
route?
year or two.
Or a year or two?
I said
My
a
bad.
year or two, man. I wasn't going to take five. Well, you're
Five
probably
would be
right though.
crazy.
It probably would have been five knowing me. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so basically, I started the process of ordering the house, and at the same time, getting the loan, Started the dirt work right at that time. Once we had the house bought and knew the exact dimensions, then I started the dirt work and the solar and, getting all and the whole permit thing, like going back to that solar, like once I actually started doing the building and the inspector would come out here, first time the guy comes out, he's like the coolest guy. He shows up and he gets out. He's like, dude, you win. And I go, what'd I win? And he goes, you win the coolest property. He goes, this place is awesome. He goes, I just drove down your driveway and seen elk, man. Right on your driveway. And I was like, oh yeah, they're always hanging out here, the antelope, elk, mule deer. And he's like, man, this is amazing. And he gets out and he sees what I'm doing. He's like, why'd you dig all that dirt out? And I go, well, because it's expansive soil. I wanted to get down to bedrock and then refill with compactable. He's like, dude, you ain't got to do all that. He's like, you're one of those guys, aren't you? You're like Mr. Overkill, huh? And I go, yeah. And he goes, yeah, me too. He's like, I'm the same. But that dude was so cool, man. He would just come out and look at stuff, and he's like, this is way better than the contractors around here do. He's like, I wish you were a contractor. I'd refer you to everybody. It was funny because I'd always be nervous. I'd be like, oh, man, what if it's not just right, and the whole thing gets bogged down, and
they shut you down.
Like
then you got to redo it.
Yep, there's a lot. You hear a lot about that. People having to rip stuff out, redo it, dig different trenches to separate lines, and all this stuff. But it was cool. So it was like 6 months from when we ordered the house to when we were like ready to move in. We moved in like a week before Christmas last year, and the whole inside wasn't completely done, but it was like, all right, I can do little drywall, and paint and texture and flooring stuff while we live here. But because at the time, man, last time we did the podcast, we were renting a house, a new house that a guy had built. We had it leased for a year, and I thought I was going to have the whole house built in that period of time and never even started,
Yeah.
And so once the lease come up, then we were already in this process of buying this thing, and I was like, hey, any chance we could extend this lease for another 6 months? And he was like, no, my daughter's moving from California and she needs to live here. So he's like, I can't do it. So we had to start Airbnb-ing it because there's no way that would really rent you a house for 6 months. And we're kind of it's kind of a small community up here. And everybody's gone to do an Airbnb because people come up here to hunt and ski and fish and do their off-roading and stuff. So all the houses are all Airbnb. They're not long-term rentals. So, man, we did I guess probably about 6 months of Airbnbs.
That couldn't have been cheap.
Oh, dude, it was insane. Between paying my mortgage on the property, paying for the loan on the new house we just bought that wasn't even here yet, and then paying Airbnbs, we were spending $7,000 a month just on those things.
Unreal.
And if you guys remember, I told you last time we talked, I had 2 clients.
Yeah.
That a family of 4 spending $7,000 a month just on properties and rental, like you could do the math. That's pretty tough, man.
Did you have to take on more clients? Did you have
more than 2?
I couldn't because I was doing everything myself, and in fact, kind of partway into the process, I had to quit one of the accounts.
Really?
And so then I was just down to 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I had to quit the reining barn I took on. It was just killing me, man, because they're down in Scottsdale, which is, almost a 4-hour drive for me.
Yeah.
And it's all up and down this mountain. So I was having to go down there every week for like 3 to 4 days.
Yep.
So I was just never home, and then my other account was either in California or in Canada. So I was flying or driving, depending on where they were at. And so it got to where I was just never home. And then I ended up having a heat stroke down there in Scottsdale. And it was about probably my 5th or 6th heat stroke in my life. And it hit me hard.
Yeah, I bet.
And it was one I didn't bounce back from, man. Like I still feel the effects now, a whole year later.
Were you shoeing when it happened?
Yeah, I was just finishing up a 3-day run down there, and it was right before 4th of July. It was like the end of June. And you know how you've been gone 3-4 days. I was getting homesick. I was really, really excited to get home and be at the kids for 4th of July. And then I had to take off and then I had to take off and go shoot in California that next week. So I'm getting through the last day, and I remember I shod like 5 2-year-olds, um, put sliders on the back end, and it was like their first or second pair. And, that went real smooth. I got through that in the morning, gave them all some Demorcidin gel ahead of time so that by the time it'd start kicking in, they'd be coming in to get shot. I'd get around them, pretty safely. And then, got them done, and then I had to move my truck down the lower barn and shoot a broodmare on the front that had a baby on her side. So I had to have a hand holder outside the stall with the baby in the stall. And that lower barn has those big old misting fans. And
Yeah.
so it was super humid in there. It felt
Yeah.
good, to be out of that dry heat, but it was crazy humid. I got in there and was just sweating buckets out. And like halfway through that mare, I started feeling cold. And then I quit sweating completely. And I started hearing my heartbeat in my ears getting really loud. I was thinking, oh, this ain't good. I know
Here
where
we
this
go
is
again.
going. It's
Yeah.
115 out and I'm freezing. This is not a good thing.
Yeah.
And so by the time we got done, the guy put the mare away, and he was like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good, man." And I went and started loading the truck, and then uh, pretty soon, man, my legs gave out. I remember I picked up my anvil, and I was like, "Where the hell does this go?" I'm like looking at my truck, and I'm holding my anvil,
That ain't a
and then
good feeling.
it dawned on me. I was like, "Man, this is not good. That I don't know where to put
No.
my anvil in my own shoeing truck." So I put it back down, and I went over to my ice chest, and by the time I walked there, man, I was almost giving out. And I had a couple of, like, my ice had melted the day before, but it was still cool. And I had a couple little gel packs in there, so I put them in my armpits and grabbed a couple of cold drinks and sat down in front of my fan and just started getting dizzy and nauseous. And my heartbeat was so damn loud in my ears, I couldn't hardly hear anything but it.
I don't like that
Yeah.
And
feeling.
no, it wasn't good. And I
But
knew, I
your
knew,
hands are throbbing and tingling.
yeah, dude, everything, the world was spinning. I was just like, oh, here we go
The worst
again, man.
part is because it's not even like it's not like, oh, if you get a bad headache or something, you're like, or like break a leg, you're like, whatever, I got like 30-40 minutes and I'll probably be within like cool. Like heat stroke, you're like, this is just the beginning. This is gonna suck for a solid 2 to 3 hours right now. I'm gonna be like throwing up. It's like, did you do you think like that, was there like a day before, like looking back, you're like, okay, this is kind of how it happened, like maybe I didn't have enough water beforehand or something like that, or was it just purely that day was too hot and just doing too many?
It was like you said, it was building up to it. It wasn't even as hot as it could have been. It was like 110, 115. It could be the summer prior. We had more days like 120, like
Jeez.
insane heat, and I got through those good. But um, I would
Yeah, no
always
problem.
typically I would go to town. I would stay the night at the ranch while I was there, and normally I'd go to town every night and restock my ice and drinks and make sure I had electrolytes, like Liquid IV or something, or that
Yep.
element stuff. And so I didn't do that this trip. I'd worked late, because I was having to pace myself because of the heat, and
Hmm.
and I would just be like, oh, it's all right. I'll drink lukewarm water tomorrow. And then I ran out of electrolytes that second day, and once that water gets lukewarm, you don't want to drink it near as much. So
Nope.
yeah,
No.
And
and
not
No.
and
and
then
nothing good to put in it, like you're like, oh fuck it.
yep, and then being the last day of the trip, where I'm wanting to hurry up and get home, and if I instead of maybe taking it easy and maybe getting home an extra or a day later, just pushing to get done, and
Yep.
so I got myself in the truck after I started to kind of normalize my temperature and everything, and turned the AC on, and I drove down to the Wendy's down the street and ordered like 10 drinks, sodas and,
Frosty.
Powerades and
Yeah,
Frosties.
Frosty.
Yeah. And I drank all that. And then I drove a little bit further. I got the halfway point up the hill. And by the time I got there, my whole body was cramping. Every muscle in my foot, my toes,
Oh,
my
It's
legs,
not fun.
body, my tongue, everything, man. So I had to pull over there in a parking lot and take some muscle relaxers and lay my seat back for about a half hour until everything loosened up to where I could drive again. So
Unreal.
then once that happened, then I got on the road, and now it's getting like midnight, and I'm driving up the mountain, and the road's pretty quiet. And I remember I come around this real sharp hairpin turn, and there's a truck in my lane. The
Oh
headlights are
boy.
in my lane, and there's a semi. This clown's trying to pass a semi on this sharp turn, and I didn't even have time to look to see what was on the right. Man, I just had to put the shoeing truck in the ditch, and I
Damn.
mean our mirrors must have kissed. It was so close. Luckily, the ditch wasn't too deep to where it rolled me or anything, and I was able to come up out of it. But then I get home and I'm telling my wife the next morning all this stuff, and she's like, "Why are you doing this?" She's like, "What you've got the best account in the world now, and you're doing these reiners where you're having to get under 2-year-old, and even yearlings that have barely been touched,
Yeah.
and those horses you're having near death experiences every other day, and you're risking this great account that you've had for 13, 14 years now." And she's like, and now we're getting to the point where we're having to chase money at this reining barn and stuff. She's like, this ain't what we signed up for. And she's like, you're going to end up killing yourself down there. And so it was tough because I've never had to quit an account because of, health reasons or getting older type stuff. And I really love the people, man. The trainers were so cool. Like I said, I'd stay at their house, and, we always had a really good time. And I really enjoyed working on those reining horses, especially once they kind of weren't super dangerous anymore. And
Yeah.
just kind of trying to solve their little issues they would have, and it was fun. But I had to make that call and say, hey, man, I've got to pull the plug because
The
you know
risk
of all
versus
my
reward.
yeah, and it's like there's nothing we could do about that heat. Like we could fix all the other issues I have, but we can't change the fact that you guys are in Scottsdale and that Scottsdale is hell on earth for like 8 months out of the year.
Another great sponsor of the Forge and Brains podcast is America's Farrier Supply, Well Shod. They are always known for the $10 flat rate shipping, and you can't get much better deal than that, hands down, because everything that we use and pretty much is pretty heavy, and a lot of times when you place an order from somewhere else, shipping is going to be very expensive. Well Shod outdoes everybody else in the market because of that $10 flat rate shipping. They are the biggest farrier supply that we know and have in the U.S. They make their own ambles in-house. They have the Cliff Carroll ambles. They have the Scott ambles, and then they also have the Austin Eden Scott ambles for the 200-pounder, and then down to like 70-pound ambles as well. They also have every other tool that you could possibly ever dream of on their website or in stock, always at a fingertip away to order and buy. Every single horseshoe that you could ever possibly need is on their website as well. So you can go to their website, wellshod.com, use code BRAINS, and show your support of Forge and Brains podcast and Wellshod. So go check them out. We thank Wellshod for supporting the show and helping us provide content to all you guys and sharing the insight that everybody has to offer, throughout the years of trials and tribulations of being a farrier. Hopefully that it can pass on information to new people or people that have been in this their whole life and just share those details with everybody. So thank you, Wellshod. Go show your support. Shop on their website and use that code BRAINS. Help show your support. Thank you. Yeah.
So we parted ways, and it actually worked out great because then basically in that 6-month period where I was doing the foundation and all the plumbing and electrical and solar, if I'd have been paying a contractor for that, I would have spent more than I'd have made at that account in a year. You know what I mean? So by being home to be able to do that stuff myself, I basically, I don't know how to put it exactly, but say I would have say I would have made 80 grand at that account in a year. I saved 80 grand in 6 months. So
Yeah, no, that's a lot of times whenever you're like, even if I'm going to work on my truck, I'm like, all right, I can make this X amount an hour doing this, but this guy costs this X amount an hour to pay. Well, if I can pay him and still have profit on top, that's worthwhile. But if it's
mhm.
the other way, it's like, well, you just kind of need to do it yourself,
Yeah,
if it's something you can do.
yeah, and so it worked out cool, because then I was home with the family a lot more too. I wasn't spending that
Yep.
3 or 4 days a week down in Scottsdale. And, so to this day, I just have the one account now, and I go away for a week, shoe the horses, and then I'm home for 3 or 4, and basically by the end of that 3 or 4, the family is ready for me to go back to work.
Yeah. Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. And then I go away
Do you
for a
take
week, and then they all miss me.
do you take a good sense of pride in like being able to do all that work on your house versus paying somebody also?
I'll tell you what, that's a good point, Gav. I really do. I really do. It's awesome. And then the family gets to see it. The kids get to be part of it. They get to
Yeah.
kind of see it. I talked a lot last time about, my grandpa and all the good men that had a strong influence in my life. And that was the stuff I really admired about those guys was they would do everything, man. They wouldn't call the plumber when the toilet backed up. They would take the toilet apart and fix it, and,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I've always kind of had that in me, and it is something I am proud of. And like doing the generator set this week, like I was at church yesterday, and one of my buddies there said, "Hey, what you been up to?" I said, "Oh, I just installed this backup generator into my solar system." He's like, "Really?" He's like, "You know how to do that?" And I go, "Well, I didn't, but I do now."
Yeah.
Dude.
It's just you can figure anything out.
Yep. Especially with I think we're in the prime of it. We have like the University of YouTube
Yeah, YouTube
Yeah.
that
University.
we get a reference that man, I remember my dad, back in the day, like the old men had a bookshelf in their shop and it had
Right.
owner's manuals for every car or truck they've ever owned, a couple ones for home plumbing, electrical, and something. It's you had to look through books. It's like now we have it so easy. I I don't see why more guys don't do that, like what you're saying, because it is you get done with the job and you're like, man, I did this and I can fix it if it breaks. I know everything about it right now. It's
That that's one of the really good things about doing it yourself is when it does break or glitch or whatever, like it.
yep,
You don't have to wait for that guy that installed it to come back out and fix it. Um,
yeah,
and I had a guy, the guy that designed the solar, he did the drawing for me to get it permitted. I talked to him and he goes, man, the problem with the solar industry was that homeowners figured out that solar is stupid easy. And he goes, we had all these companies charging people crazy money to come install stuff. And then the DIY part of solar kind of took life. And he goes, now it's all on YouTube. He goes, most everybody could install solar. So solar companies are really, really struggling. They're just having to become retail outlets. And,
Yeah.
you know, that,
So
so that,
how did you go about learning how to do these projects? Like, what did you look for? Like, was it YouTube or did you get books or what?
oh, I definitely go through my owner's manuals when I get them. Like that solar system, like I said, I got it 5 years, 4 years before I installed it. So I had the owner manual in the house, going through the owner manual for the panels, owner's manual for the inverters, for the batteries. So I studied on those things for years before I ever actually had to put them all together. And then, sure enough, watch some YouTube videos on different stuff. I talked to an old customer of mine in California that owns a big solar outfit. I would call him with questions, and he'd help me out. And so much of it is it's just the fear of actually getting started. Once you take that first step at
yeah.
all, like that's the hardest part. Really, is all right. I'm going to build this today. I'm going to get
Mm-hmm.
started. And, they say that's the deal with like starting a new business or anything like that. It's always that first step. Is the
Oh, just
hardest.
go,
Yep.
man. It's so interesting to me. It's the type of guy that ends up being in our community a lot too. Is just the own your trade guy and the own your life guy. But
Yeah.
it's also a person that's not afraid to reach out and join a little community. Where just you talking right there of how many other people you met that became friends or a part of your life just through building this house. You know what I mean? So it's just and
That's
you
right.
fully engulfed yourself in it, and they you owned it. You just you wanted to be all in it. It's that's what I think. A lot of people are missing that stuff in life. If you would have just paid a contractor, you had no idea. Or a
That's
project
right.
manager, you wouldn't have got to meet all these people or learn more things. Man, that's great stuff. I think
I,
it's worth it even on that.
I remember when I was a young guy and I wanted to start making some punches and stuff because I told you guys how I destroyed the first ones I ever got because I'd never seen a
Yeah.
shoe made. So
Yeah.
I didn't know you weren't supposed to punch at a welding heat, you know.
It
uh,
just went in so easy.
yeah, yeah, and so like Lee Green was my go to guy. Like he was the only guy I knew that really knew anything, and then he had the supply shop and I remember I asked Lee, I said, "Hey, do you have H13 I could buy?" And he goes, "Well, I can get it. What do you want it for?" I says, I'd like to make some punches and pritchels." And he goes, "Come here, let me show you something." He takes me over to where the punches and pritchels are. He's like, "Here, you can buy this for $25. Why would you want to take an hour, to make one that's not as good, that's not professionally made?" And I go, "Well, I just feel like it would, I destroy them pretty rapidly. So I figured it'd probably be good to know how to make them." And
Mm-hmm.
he goes, "Let me tell you something, Travis." He goes, if you need to re-roof your house," he goes, "and say you make $100 an hour shoeing horses." He goes, "The roofer only charges, $45 an hour to come roof your house. Does it make sense for you, the guy that's not the expert, to roof your house? Or does it make more sense for you to hire an expert that has the experience to go roof your house for $45 an hour while you're out making 100 an hour?" And I thought about it. I was like, that does make a lot of sense, and I totally appreciate what he was saying. There are certainly things you need to hire an expert for. If you need a
Yeah.
surgery or
Oh
something, you
yeah.
probably shouldn't DIY your surgery.
Yep.
I know some of us do every now and then, but if you got a tumor you got to remove or something like that, you probably ought to go see an oncologist.
Yeah, see a professional.
But and
But
definitely when I was full swing, when I was shoeing, hundreds of horses all over in 5 different counties, like I definitely needed to take my truck to the mechanic because it would cost me $2,000 to change my oil if I took a day off to change my oil. But if I
yep.
took the truck into him on my way home from work and had a beer with him while he changed my oil, and I paid him $200, that was way better.
Oh yeah.
Um, so that it kind of depends on your situation in life, but man,
Oh,
I
it
really
does.
enjoy.
And it depends on what you like exactly what you got going on and like man, like I got an old truck around just so like something I can work on every once in a while to enjoy working on something. And it's
Yep.
like there's every once in a while you gotta do those things that like the roof. I probably would do my own roof just because
Yep.
I'm a weird guy like that. And I'm like, yeah, I want to know how it's done though. I
Oh
just want it like that's like the tool thing. I guarantee when I started making tools, it wasn't productive at all. You know what I mean? But
no.
now it's
It,
like
it,
it turns into something eventually. After you
well,
start. But it's like
exactly,
you
and
got to enjoy learning some things every once in a while.
I'm so glad I did make some tools, because as I get older and stuff, I could make you a fuller that you might want to buy. I could make you a
Yep.
punch you might want to buy. And when it gets to where I can't shoe enough horses to support my family and my wife, then, maybe it's time to start making some tools and selling them. And it's really nice to have that in my back pocket, and I think all of us are
Oh
going to
yeah.
get to that point. Yeah, we're all going to shoeing horses. We're all going to get to that point someday where we've got to figure out another way to make some of our, maybe not all of our living, but some of it needs to be, coming from a different avenue than just getting under horses all day.
Oh yeah.
You know,
That's all the smart horseshoers that I know. Like later in their life, it seems they all got multiple businesses going. Like something that's going to make some money that's not as hard on their body.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
you
so
know,
you don't have to ever call it quit. Like you can keep making money. Like it's just
yeah. Well, and speaking of roofing, man, I was thinking back years ago at my first house, the one I talked about where me and Daniel Jones, we're always foraging out there and discovering bugs and thinking we found new species of bugs and whatnot.
yeah.
Uh, that garage I had there at that place, the roof kind of started blowing off. It was getting real old, and so Nick Rossi came down from Northern California and he helped me roof that thing. And then my buddy Gerardo Chavez came by. He was working with me a little bit, and he had done some roofing for in the trades for a few years. So the three of us roofed that thing in a day, man, and it saved me probably $5,000-6,000.
Yep.
And that was one of the things where it's like, I could pay a pro. I've got the money. But why not do it with my buddies and have a good time
Yeah, the sense of pride
learn something.
takes
Heck
over.
yeah.
Just being able to do it yourself.
Oh man, it would be way cheaper for me to buy a beef every year compared to chasing animals around the woods that I'm gonna have a torturous time carrying out. But you like to do fun things sometimes that are hard, not so fun.
So, Travis, when you kind of got to that point where you wanted to get rid of that reining barn, what were kind of the things that you justified on, or what were the things that you had to like go through to check off, like, is this worth keeping, or is it time to move on and go to just my one client? Like, what was the checklist that you went through to make sure, like, this is a good decision to let this barn go and just focus on my other one?
That's a good question, man. I basically had a lot of experience with that over the last 10 years, because when we bought this property in 2018, I had to start shrinking my business in California so that I could move here eventually and still handle my business in California. Because I knew if I tried to build a business here, it would be at a significantly lower rate than what I was getting in California. So doing the math, it was like it'd be worth it to drive to California for a week, every other week, and keep that money rolling in. So that's what I kind of came up with a system of kind of how to basically cull the herd of clients. And during that time, I was like, all right, if I'm going somewhere, that's not real convenient to get to, and they've only got like 3 or 4 horses, and I've got to go somewhere else that day to kind of make my standard living, like financially, that's not a great decision for me, because I did have big accounts where I could just go and set up all day, and multiple days. So it's like, why? So that was kind of the first factor was obviously
was convenience then kind of?
Convenience, and then logistics of where they were at. Like, basically, I had to come up with like what's my dollar amount I need to make a day. And if you're going out and doing a favor for somebody, stopping to do one horse that's an hour out of your way, like that's going to cost you, like unless you're charging them enough and they're willing to pay it. So there was a lot of that, or say it was like a dangerous horse, that I've always been that guy that like ends up with those horses that nobody else wants because they're dangerous, and I get around them. And so I had a few of those where I was just doing the horse because I didn't want any other horseshoer to have to do it. It's like I know how to get around this guy. I don't want somebody else getting their head kicked in. So I would go do those. But when it came time to start cutting stuff, that's the stuff that came to the forefront of my mind. Like, okay, I should get rid of that. That's a losing proposition financially. And if I do make the wrong move one day and get my head kicked in, then, where's that put my family? So I did a lot of that. And I was really good. Like I never wanted to make anybody mad. I wanted to not just drop them cold. So I would try and hook them up with guys that worked for me that they knew. They were familiar with the person. Eventually, like when I let my big account in LA go, I told them, and I'd worked for that guy for like 20 years. I mean, it was a kind of account, you could just have that one account and go buy a house because it was so steady. It was a lot of horses. It was big money. But I told him, I said, hey, I can't keep coming to LA. It's too far away. And I said, so Armando's going to become your horseshoer. That's my recommendation. And I said, my plan is Armando will be my helper next time. The time after that, me and Armando will be sharing the account 50-50. And then the third time I will be Armando's helper. And then I transition out and so we did that, and it worked good.
That's a good one.
Worked real good. Yeah, it just kind of softened that transition, and it kept it to where, like, when him and Armando fell out, he called me like, "Who do I call now?" Because he wasn't mad at me. And even though and it's so hard to transfer an account to somebody else. It's a tough situation. But
what about the ill-mannered horses then?
Best way.
What do you do about those?
Ones, I would ask my guys if they wanted them, and if one of my guys wanted them, then that they knew what they were getting into.
Yeah.
but a lot of times I just told them, hey, I'm the guy that does this for you, but I can't recommend this to anybody else. Nobody else really wants it, so you're on your own, sadly.
Yeah.
And and the funny thing is, a lot of those people I would go do that kind of stuff for, they would get pissed, and they were the ones that were like, "Wow, the hell with you then if you're not going to risk your life on my horse." And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
wow, thanks for the appreciation, guys.
Yeah. Oh my
Um,
gosh.
It's upsetting,
but
like how fast a client can just switch on you like that. They
oh
praise
man,
you forever, and then all of a sudden, boom, they can get rid of you just as quick.
Well, and they
yeah,
just get so used to like almost shitting on you that they're like, "Well, it's never been a big deal before." You're like, "No, it's been a
yeah,
big deal this whole entire time."
yeah.
Like,
I
it's
just
just
haven't
You
been
guys,
showing it.
you
yeah.
guys haven't been there that next morning when I couldn't get my boots on because my back is so wrenched that I can't even get down there to tie my boots. But yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
hadn't been a big deal for you guys.
Yeah, yeah, it's been
Um,
easy as can be. He's doing nothing up here.
but the rain and barn, like it, the thought process was basically like, man, I'm just not home. I kind of at the point when I took on the rain and barn, I got a call from a buddy of mine that used to shoe for him, uh, Brent Chastain, and he said, hey, you remember that account I had in Scottsdale? I said, oh yeah, you love that account. And he goes, well, he goes, I had to quit, but I've stayed friends with them, and now they're in a bind. Like the shoers they've had since have just been flakes and lots of lamenesses, lots of issues, and they're in a big bind right now. He goes, I know you drive by there all the time on your way to California. I was just wondering if you'd be interested. It's a good account. And I says, you know what? If they're in a bind, I'll stop and talk to them and see what's up. And so they had 100 head at the time, and about 20 of them were being done by a local guy that had been coming in and fixing shoes for their other farrier, and they really liked this guy, Jason Johnson, really good dude. And so they were pretty happy at Jason, but he was too busy to take on the whole barn. He could only do like the 20. So they basically had 75 head that were way overdue. Uh, I guess the other guys were coming in and billing them for a full set and not even touching the horse. Like kind of
It's
doing
not a
them
good
every
business
other
practice.
time. It was a bad deal. So I saw what they had going on. They had tons of wedge PLRs set way, 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 way back. And I mean, feet were just knuckling over in the front, and hind feet, pointing east and west. And, sliders just nailed on straight out of the box, and they would just twist the shoe and nail it on in all these weird positions. It was rough. So I said, all right, I'll at least get you guys caught up, and then, like I say, I really like the people, and I found it really fun to get in there and try and work on some of the challenging cases where they're spreaders and stuff like that. And the next thing you know, I just kind of fit them into the system. But slowly but surely, it became one of those deals where it was just taking way more time than what I ever anticipated. And then when the heat stroke happened and money was they'd made some business changes where money had gotten kind of tight for them, and I was like, it's kind of a no brainer. I need to pull out of there. And like I say, the hardest part was just swallowing my pride and saying, hey, I just can't keep doing this. You know,
Yep.
physically,
Yep.
physically I can't. But it turned out as one of the best decisions because, like I say, the count I have, it's amazing. Um,
Just on those reindeers, you said you got in there. A lot of them were in like wedged up PLRs and stuff. Like I'm sure, like man, when you said that, I like automatically picturing these horses that are like, the newer reining horses are fairly sporty, lighter horses, but still like littler footed and stuff. And I just picture
yeah,
these feet with like contracted heels, big old like the quarters are pushed all the way forward to almost where like the first nails would be, and then like your hind feet just like huge flares, lateral flares, nasty as shit.
yeah,
How do you
you
go
nailed it.
about those horses? How because it's not going to be looking good the first time, right? Like it's
Process.
just going to be a little bit. Yeah. So how do you go
Well,
about it, and how do you prepare the client for
so
what's going to go down?
so the big thing, I went for a meeting with these people before I ever touched a horse. I wanted to see what they had. I wanted to see who
Mm-hmm.
they were. I wanted to tell them, how I shoe, and I knew it would be different than what they're used to. I'm not setting shoes back. I'm not, not doing the wedge PLR thing at all. And so I went and they kind of took me through and showed me some of their worst horses. And it's like you said, contracted heel, stacked up heel, all the quarters were jammed up, like tons of quarter cracks. Almost all of them were high outside, so the front feet were turned out, the hind feet were turned out and flaring laterally, gnarly. And then it's so hot and dry there that the feet were hard as bricks, man. And then, like I say, the wedge PLRs are set way back, but then some of these things have been on there for 12 weeks or more. And so those horses have wore the shoe even further back and even squarer than what it ever was out of the box. And so that first shoe, man, I put most all of them into steel shoes on the front, and I rockered the toes up at almost a 90-degree angle to where at least kind of filled the gap. And I didn't want it to be a shovel. I didn't want that toe to stick out like a shovel past the foot and cause those horses to stumble. So I had to rock that thing straight up and down, man, to fill that gap. And I mean, it looked better, but it still looked crazy to see a rocker toe that was basically a toe cap,
like angle iron.
And it was hard, most of them horses have never been burned, and I'm not about to go shoeing everything cold. So I'm over there teaching these horses to be hot shod and, I did find some pretty cool aluminum shoes for the ones that they really thought needed to be in aluminum. I went with the double S. It's kind of an omnidirectional shoe.
Okay.
It's pretty sweet. It's damn near a half-inch thick, and it's got that omni roll from just in front of the heel all the way around, and it's pretty nice shoes. It's pretty easy to shape, and I put that on the ones that they wanted aluminum. And
how do you go about getting a horse ready to be burned like that, where you're teaching them to be burned? Because there's so many different ways people can do that. How do you go about it?
Well, this is something me and Nick Rossi taught Robbie Medeiros years ago when Nick Rossi started coming shoeing with me. And, he had worked with Robbie, and there were some horses Nick said, oh, man, we just can't burn these horses. Some of them will freak out, and that's what Robbie would tell Nick. And I said, well, you got to train these horses to get used to the sound, because it's really the sound. So I go, you just got to walk up and pet them on the neck and go, and just keep petting their neck. It was a joke, but Nick went back and told Robbie that, and he got Robbie doing it.
That's so funny.
That's a throwback from like 15, 20 years ago right there, but we had a good time with that one.
Robbie the horse whisperer.
Every time I'd see Robbie after that, I'd go.
That is good.
But no, it was just kind of, I'd go in there with a hot shoe, I'd have it hotter than normal, and then just give it a little touch. And I'll use like the heels of a shoe. Like if you've got some separation in the white line or something, I'll pick all the dirt and rocks out during my hoof prep. I'll open it up, and then when I come with that hot shoe, I'll use it like a cauterizing iron, and I'll just use the edge of a heel to burn into that little separation, just to, really seal it up and kill any bacteria that might be in there. And so then you're just starting off with a really light, little easy burn that'll create a little smoke for them to see while I'm doing that sort of thing. Or on those really hard frogs that you just can't trim, I'll come in there and use the heel and just kind of heat up the side of that frog and then get under there. So I'm just doing very minimal burning and a little bit of trimming on a frog and just kind of easing the way into it. But I mean, there's a couple of them that just about jumped out of their hooves, even with the slightest little burn.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of them got hot shod the first trip, and then every one of those 2-year-olds I shod the back feet for the first time, they got hot shod, little rocker toes burned in, and they just had to learn to take it, man. It's just one of those things, it's
just a little bit at a time.
To me, it's a huge part of horseshoeing, Yeah, I mean, I started out cold shoeing and I can do it, but I really prefer to hot fit them. So to me, it's worth it if it takes a while to get through that first shoeing to get them used to the idea to where every time I shoe them after that, it's no big deal.
You got to kind of have a client that's on board for it though, right? That you're like, hey, you're not going to let him run through the barn. Okay. Like you're going to stop him. Like we're gonna keep them within this vicinity where it's like I have one client that I can't burn on shoes at that barn, and it's not that the horses I don't like I could get the horses through it. I couldn't get her through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I've been shooting for that lady for like
Right.
9 years, but like she's not tough enough. Like she ain't hard enough to be like, yeah, I'll stop him. Like
Yeah.
I'll keep
That's
him
right.
here or anything. You know what I mean? Like she's gonna maybe freak out worse than the horses. So it is like that's been a
Yeah.
hard thing for me to accept as a horseshoer to be like, this is possible, but not here.
Yeah.
Like not with the help I have with me today. We're like, do you think that's a little bit easier in training barns because you kind of have like a trainer and a groom?
It certainly is, and you know they're busy and everything. So I was really respectful of their help. You know, like if they were busy, if I knew they were busy, I'd save that bad horse that needed a hand. You know, until the end of the day
Yep.
when they had time, and that's the big thing. I mean, communication is as cliche as it sounds. You know, like that when I went for that appointment with those people, I told them, I said, hey, I hot shoe everything. Uh, I I I don't like to set toes back. I don't like to stack heel up. All the stuff that's really common in the Western world is nothing. I'm not gonna do any of that for you. I said
Yeah.
I've worked with vets my whole career, and I've had some really good ones to work with. I said, but you know, depending on who your vet is, we may butt heads because if he's all about these wedge PLRs, like I'm not putting them on. I'm just
Yep.
Yep.
not. And they were like, man, if you'll whatever you want, we're happy to go. And so sure enough, man, the first, maybe the second day I was shooting there, I go get this horse and I get a text from one of the trainers that says it's from the vet saying, you know, this horse had some coffin joint issues and he injected it and he recommended wedge PLRs. And so I get the horse out and its toes are pointing east and west. It looks more like a duck than it does a horse. And tons of lateral flare. I'd pick them up. It's high as heck outside. Cheated the medial toe and hogged it off. And um, so I get my phone out. I put it on slow mo video, and I walk backwards, and I get a slow mo video of this horse, you know, breaking over the medial toe and then winging its foot, you know, like way out, and then coming like this and just dropping that lateral quarter and heel into the ground, and then that huge secondary impact of that medial slamming down. And in that slow mo video, you can see all the wobble that all that stuff creates in the flight pattern. And you can see,
Yep.
you know, you can see those suspensory branches wanting to pop off the bone and everything as they're landing. And so I send that slow mo video to the trainer. I says, well, how about we balance this horse up to where it's not so high outside and where it's not slamming the lateral aspect of its foot into the ground and see what that does for the instead of putting a wedge on there and setting it back to where we you know exacerbate that lateral heel first landing. How about we just try and get this horse balanced and see what that does? So I go, you know, take a nipper run from the center of the toe to the outside heel and whack off about 3/4 of an inch and then pop a shoe on there that's round in the toe and fits the shape of the coffin bone. And then I take a slow-mo video of that horse just like break it over, pop, pop, you know, just walking all normal. And I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, coffin joint issue solved.
Yeah. And I always wonder if it's the vets end up having like this will be like maybe a little bit of a hot take. In general, our farrier community's not great at fitting feet, right? If you're gonna grab 20 head of horses just randomly, you know, just stopping horse trailers alongside the highway, and you got 20 head shod horses there, and I bet 19 or 18 of them aren't going to be fit up very nice. So they're going to be fit up pretty crappy. And so I wonder, is the vets recommending a PLR just like they're like whatever? At least they won't even shape them or anything. Like at least I get this generic. It's better than what they're doing otherwise. Sometimes you know what I mean. Like I wonder if that's why they recommend them.
Well, I might have said this during our first podcast, but you know, when I first started, a vet would never tell a farrier. I'd never heard of a vet tell a farrier how to shoe a horse. I'd never heard of a vet prescription for shoeing. The vets were like there to take X-rays and tell you what the pathologies were, and that was it. Uh,
Mhm.
Yep.
And then somewhere along the line, that completely switched to where it's like they come out of vet school, they've never shot a foot. They got maybe 4 hours of education on the hoof and shoeing and you know issues of the foot, and they come out and think they can prescribe how to shoe a horse to a guy that's been shoeing for 20 or 30 years. And that always made me very angry. But the more I looked at it, I thought, you know what, we did this to ourselves. We caused this to happen because we gave ownership of our trade to the vets. We
To the
the
vet and to the manufacturers
That's
as
right.
well.
Well, that's right. Like the Shaper horseshoe, when that thing came out, I saw it in the Western Horseman magazine, and the little slogan was Shaper horseshoes. We shape them for the feet you shoe, so you don't have to.
Damn.
And I thought,
Whoa, dude.
I'm like, what in the world? So yeah, I mean, we can complain all day long about how vets are and all that, but the reason is our skill set. Like if we would learn some basic anatomy, some basic physiology, learn how the biomechanics of the horse work, just a simple
Yep.
grasp of it. You don't have to be Isaac Newton, but you figure you learn these things, and then you develop your skills where you could draw a clip, you could burn it in flush, you can trim a foot, balance to the medial lateral aspect, and you know about how much to take off without getting the horse sore. Like you pretty much won't have problems with vets. Like they actually will learn to
Yeah.
respect you. Like that vet there, dude. The wedge PLR was his go-to, but then when he started seeing my shoeing, like me and him got along great. It got to where he recommended that wedge PLR 3 or 4 times. Then he came back and seen the horses in a steel St. Croix shoe with a rocker toe with a balanced foot and nice short gathered up foot that was actually the shape of the coffin bone. And then after that, it was like I would just get messages of what the pathology of the horse was. Never ever
Yep.
another shoeing recommendation.
Yep.
So life just got real easy, and the trainer, the trainer that I guess he was the husband. He was from Germany, and man, me and him would stay up at late at night after we get back from dinner, and we'd watch reining videos and talk about the way horses were going. And he was always like reading shoeing articles, and it was so different. Like dealing with a guy that started in Germany versus a guy that was from here and started here. He loves our country so much. Like he's had such great opportunity here. Like his childhood dream was to grow up and come here. He was a breath of fresh air to be around.
I
He
bet.
really understood good horseshoeing, and he could identify it, and he could see the difference between that stack them up, set them back versus balance them, trim them to the proper length, fit them the actual true shape of their foot. Like he could see all that, and he totally was 100% in on it. And so that was what was really hard to walk away from. But I've always said it's really worth spending that time to educate your clients too, man, because a lot of guys they don't want to be bothered with talking to them. They just want to show up, make the money, get out of there. And so then you're never looked at as an expert that way anyhow. Where if
Yep.
you take the time to educate that little girl that's standing there holding the horse for you, and you do it every time you're out there and every time you see her, well, that can end up in a situation where 10 years down the line, that little girl owns 100 or has a ranch with 120 head of layups, and you're her guy. And, she trusts you more than the Olympic vet that she has working for her when it comes to feet, which that's all a true story. Uh, and you have this amazing relationship. I think
Yeah.
I told you guys that I started shoeing for this little girl. She had a little pony in kindergarten, and you know 15 years later we had 120 head at times, mainly always around 100 head. And um, it was just an awesome relationship because of the fact that I educated her, the
From the
whole
beginning, yeah.
time we were working together.
Is that
Yep.
is that still your one client you have now?
No, that one was in California. So when we first moved, I was going there. She actually, as I started giving away clients to shrink my business, she started adding more and more horses. Like I'd give away 5 horses somewhere, she would get 10. I'd give away 10 somewhere, she'd get 20 more. And eventually all my horses were in one place. So I was just shoeing for her. And then the other account that I have in Canada and California. And the problem was I had to be there like every other week to keep her horses caught up. And so that just wasn't working good, man. It was killing me. You know, it was 500-mile drive each way. And, I stuck it out as long as I could. And then I kind of had to pass that one along. And the one account I do have now that it's, go ahead.
This summer, so our friend Paul O'Reilly, so he shoes all over the place, and he was shoeing up at Spruce Meadows, and he said he was up there for a few days, and you were up there shoeing as well. How hard is it to manage, I guess you got a book of horses, your client, how hard is it to manage like a shoeing business where you're flying up to Canada when you live in Arizona and just back and forth? Like, isn't it stressful at times? Like if a horse pulls a shoe and it's up in Canada and you can't be there at the drop of a hat to fix it?
Well, you just have to not lose shoes. Makes it easy. You just don't lose any.
But is it easier said than done? But
well, don't
is
you
it stressful to manage a book like
stays
that?
On always? Don't you remember
Bodie
stays on always shoes? I just nail those on all 4 feet, dude. They stay on always.
Never going to come off.
I'll tell you what, it's kind of it's like a half a dozen, 6 of one, half a dozen of another type of thing, because there's a lot less stress in managing a single account than there is in trying to deal with 20 or 40 or 50 or whatever you have, because you're just dealing with one person basically. So the account I have is Kyle King LLC, and they're jumping horses, and so I basically coordinate with Kyle's wife Emily. She manages their barn. And so I just check show dates, try and schedule things on off weeks so that you don't have to try and schedule each horse with their show schedule. So we get together and we try and plan 6 months out, at least get a rough idea of where we're going to be for the next 6 months, and then I just buy my plane tickets, get my lodging, get my rental car, and then fly up there and handle it. It's nice that their home base up there is in Langley, because if I do have a problem, Ian Ritchie can run over and help me out. He's always really good and happy to help. He's friends with Kyle and Emily and knows them well, so he's a huge asset to us. When they're over at Spruce, I've got Marshall Isles and Charlie over there at Spruce helps me out if anything happens. Well, Charlie, he always runs a competition. He keeps track of who's got horses there, like as far as farriers, and then how many horses they got, how many shoes they lose. And so last I heard, I won the contest the last 2 or 3 years, for the least amount of shoes lost over there, which is cool.
Something to be proud of.
And we typically do have like one of the largest barns there. We might have 14 to 20 head over there, for the shows at Spruce.
And that Kyle King, he just did really well at Spruce, right?
Oh yeah, he did really good. Actually, the one that you were at Masters, he did really well there. He had a bunch of success. And then the prior trip to Spruce, back in June, he did really, really well too with that new mare he's got. And all the horses, man. He, like Kyle always says, I got a barn full of winners, and he really does, man. He's got such a salty string, and he's such a great talent. I really enjoy working for him. Like he's basically like my long lost brother. Me and him were very similar. We were wild when we were young, and now we're kind of getting long in the tooth, and just we're in the golden years of our careers. And he's super cool. I actually remember I was talking to you about maybe podcasting him one of these days and getting a top rider's take on horseshoeing and how basically the other end of the story from what we always get to hear. And I talked to Kyle about that when I was up there last time, and he goes, "Oh man, that would be cool." He goes, "I'd love to do that." He goes, "I don't know what I'd tell him." I was like, "Oh, you do good, man. You guys would hit it off." And I think that'd be really cool, man, to talk to a guy and he's been competing at Spruce his entire life. Like his dad used to compete there when he was a little kid. Before he could even walk, he was going to Spruce, kind of thing. So yeah, he'd be a really cool guy to talk to.
Is it?
We've also got the great sponsor and partner of Forge and Brain Podcast, World Championship Blacksmiths. Without the World Championship Blacksmiths, we wouldn't necessarily have the community that we have already as farriers amongst us. The WCB is not about shunning the folks that don't compete. We're about getting together the people who do. Go ahead and be yourself because you think it is a private club. The fact that there are so many hardworking men and women that don't interact is a shame. When several farriers get together for a hammer-in or going to talk about shoeing this one gelding, ideas skyrocket and the mind goes wild with possibilities. So if you're looking for a place to test your abilities and grow your skill set, the World Championship Blacksmiths is the place to do that. Upcoming next is the National Finals in Fort Worth, Texas. That is December 3rd, and the registration deadline is November 22nd. And then after that, they have the Winter Clinic that we'll talk about here in a little bit. That is January 15th to the 17th, and the deadline is January 8th. And after that, it's the West Texas Ranch Rodeo, March 22nd. Contests on their website, they have swag and tools that you can get. They have the new Seahorse toolboxes and tool cases in stock again, so you can find those on their website, and they have the catatonic hammers in stock as well. So you can go to their website and use code BRAINS, and that'll save you 10% off on their website for orders. It's not including contest fees and net membership, but support those who support you and go online and find the World Championship Blacksmiths as a place where you can invest in yourself by investing in your skill set and grow as a person, becoming friends with those that are around the world and in the United States. And you probably find somebody that lives close to you and reach out in a community just like that.
Are you doing anything like crazy on these horses? You know what I mean? Like you hear all this, like, okay, just crap of like what you got to do to keep a jumping horse sound, like a high performance horse sound. Like, do you really think it's that crazy? Do you really think you got, like, I'd love to hear it from you. You know what I mean? Like,
So
you fit feet real nice and you have a good understanding of horses. So it's like, how hard is it to keep these horses going and how, like, just different than the basics?
I'll tell you what, it is really hard. It is really hard, and it is really complicated if you're doing very complicated things, and you're, if you're hanging a bunch of steel out there and you're, giving them all the support and all this stuff, like it is going to be complicated because they're going to rip shoes off constantly, and you're setting these toes back and getting the big old square duck foot looking thing going, and tons of medial and lateral toe flare, and then every time they rip a shoe off, they take half the wall, and then you got to come back with the epoxy and the casting material. Yeah, that is complicated as hell. But when you keep it simple, like my philosophy has pretty much always been like apply the basics as perfectly and as simply as possible. And so as simple as that sounds, the basics are quite difficult. Balance, proper length, no flare, knowing how much flare to take and how much you need to keep how much wall you need to keep a shoe on, and choosing the proper nail, choosing the proper section. There's a lot that goes into the basics, but I've honed it in on the things that I think are most important, and I really focus on those. The crazy thing I do is I put concave on jumping horses, and believe
Front
it or
and
not,
hind.
front and hind, always have. And
I would
I think
think
a
that
lot
would
of
be kind of normal.
40 years ago, that's all there was. Like that's what everybody did. But now it's everybody says, oh, concave's too sticky, it's too much traction. With these synthetic surfaces, we got to use flat steel. You got to think about that deceleration of the hoof and blah blah blah. And I think people get so caught up in thinking about all these very complicated things that they put no thought and effort into the basics. Well, I'd say part of the reason why I've won that Charlie's contest at Spruce so many years of having a bunch of horses there and losing very few, if any, shoes is because I have concave on them that's fit very well. It's not hunter, not everyone's hunter fit. There's some that are hunter fit because they do overreach or whatever and
Mm-hmm.
like to interfere. So they get, hunter fit, but most of them, they have a eighth inch of expansion or maybe a hair more if they're bigger footed and low heeled, and they got a little bit of extension out the back, but it's all relative to the size and shape and the motion of that particular horse. Like there's not one single horse I shoe where it's like a cookie cutter approach. It's all
Yep.
like a lot of thought put into every horse.
So
And
you're
then
not doing
like
that
if I nail,
extended heel trailer thing that all of them have on there.
yeah, I never did. Nobody ever did teach me how to do that old West Palm Beach heel. So I
Yeah, we
guess
call that the
my
California
horses
shoeing up
don't.
here.
Yeah, my horses just don't have it, and that's probably why Kyle's not, the number one rider in the entire planet. So maybe if I could learn, if somebody would teach me the West Palm Beach heel, I could probably do better. But no, the thing people don't get is concave was made for horses. It was made for a horse's foot. It mimics a horse's natural foot. It's the best ground reaction force shoe on the planet because it can penetrate. People, like I mentioned Isaac Newton earlier, the second law of motion, um, mass times acceleration equals force, or acceleration times mass equals force, however that goes. Uh, the wider and the heavier a section is, the more effort it takes for a horse to accelerate it, to break over and reach. The more effort that takes. Well, the more that acceleration increases, and you've already got this wide shoe that has a lot of mass in it, when it hits the ground, now you're getting into the third law of motion of equal and opposite reaction. So whatever force that horse's hoof with that big wide shoe is hitting the ground, it's getting an equal amount of force shot right back into it from the earth. And that has to get taken up by the suspensory ligaments, the plantar cushion, the frog, the hydraulic cushion within the foot. So you're actually that whole man-made idea of, we need flotation. You're actually increasing force. For flotation is a beautiful sounding word. Like, sign me up. I want my horse to flotation. That
Yeah.
sounds great. But actually, you're just doubling your force. The force that's being shot up that limb and the force that's
Yep.
coming down that limb is being
Yep.
multiplied because of how wide and flat that surface is. I like to think of it in terms of, okay, how about flotation versus penetration? The more a foot can penetrate into the ground, the less force there is coming up the limb. The
Yep.
less
Yep.
the ground is hitting back. So a nice concave profile, it can penetrate into the ground better than a wide web
Yep.
shoe. So therefore, you're reducing force upon all the supportive structures of the tendons and ligaments, and shock absorbing structures like the hydraulic cushion, the plantar cushion, the lateral collateral cartilages. Um, and then the other thing, everybody's like, well, deceleration is a bad thing. The stickier that shoe is, the quicker they're decelerating. Well, I thought breakover was a big deal. I thought breakover was really important. It used to be. It used to be the only word that anybody seemed to know was
Oh
breakover.
yeah.
Well, the quicker they
Yeah.
Still big.
decelerate, the quicker they decelerate, the quicker they're going to break over, right? The breakover is
And
very
the easier they can get into the ground, the easier they get their toe into the ground to break over. Like, it's like they're not pushing over this huge old plank that they have on the front. You know what I mean? And another
exactly.
really cool word for flotation is called sliding. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know about you, I don't enjoy sliding when I land. Like,
No,
I
no,
like
sir.
having I like confidence. I like knowing that I'm gonna, like, my foot's gonna stay where I put it. You know,
Well, if that
like
was such a if that was if the slide phase was such a great thing, you would think like NBA players would be out there with Heelys on so that they could roll a little bit,
yeah,
in between each step.
Back and forth.
That would be
yeah.
that'd be awesome for LeBron James to go out there and play in some Heelys.
Could you imagine?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the whole thing, man. Like people make this very complicated, and people, the more complicated it is, probably the worse job you're doing. Like if you just increase your basic skill set, your
That's a good
forging,
one.
your fitting, your hoof prep, like your life becomes so much simpler. I can't tell like when I worked at that rehab facility for so many years, like you get new horses in every week. Every single horse that came into that place, every single one was shod in flat steel. Almost all of them side clamped. Almost all of them set back in the 90 percentile. But not, I'd say one horse came in concave in 20 years. Working there. Um, all of them came in with all kinds of soft tissue injuries, suspensories, collaterals, you name it, they had it. And every one of them got taken out of flat steel that was set back and put into concave that was toe clipped, that had a nice perimeter fit and appropriate amount of width and length. And tons of those horses, like a very, very high percentage, went back to work. And then the ones that came back for a second go around, they always came back in flat steel, typically with the same injury plus another injury. And almost all of them, like I could say a huge, like say in the 80 percentile, they're always high outside on the front. They're always low on the inside of the front. So it's like a double whammy. They've
Yep.
hacked down the inside like wicked short and then left the
Yep.
outside wicked high. And then the hind feet, they're normally really high inside and really long in the toe and crushed in the heel and set way, way, way back.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And their hairlines at the hind end are pointing up at their elbows or above. And then after you trim them and
Yep.
get them right, they're like pointing at the knee. Like that's kind of an ideal setup for a hairline on the hind feet. There's just so many simple things, and I mean, it really just comes down to developing your skill set. I'll
And
beat that
what do you
drum all
think
day.
happens? What do you think happens? Because I notice it a lot on like, and I've heard you mention it a few times here of like the outside is high on the front, and I notice that a ton on new horses that come in. I'm like, man, that horse is like the lateral quarter is pushed up and they're high on the outside, like, and I always wonder like what's happening in that guy's brain when he's trimming in it. Like, why does he want to keep trimming the medial down? Do you think he's trying to make it bigger to look symmetrical? Or is it just something that we see in our eyes, like when the horse is like standing there, that we think, oh, I'm going to go attack the medial?
I think a lot of it comes down to people trim the foot. They trim a front foot with it between their legs, and they don't step out from underneath and look at it down the long axis. Because
Yep.
when you got it between your knees, you're pulling that whole cannon bone and knee. You're twisting them from the knee outward, So
Yeah.
that's changed everything. And then when they sight the foot for flat, they put their thumb normally on the inside heel or the medial heel, and they push
Just
it down to
pushing it
sight
up.
flat. And so then
Yep.
that rotates the coffin joint to where everything looks bueno,
And
and
so
then they
then
just
it's just
rock
like
on.
subconscious is taken over, that you're like, this is high. I'm gonna get
Yep,
after this. That makes
yep,
sense. And I've always
yep,
wondered. It's like, man, it's a kind of and the same thing on the hind end of like, not the same, but it's like that medial toe is always kind of real long, crushed lateral heel, really ran up quarter on the lateral. Like, and I was
yep,
like, wait, why are guys doing this when it's under, like, how does this come
yep.
about?
And then they dub that medial toe off, and then they let the lateral flare, and that's just natural mechanics. Like they put that hoof on a stand, and it's super easy to rasp around that medial toe, and it's really hard for a lot of people to come around that lateral toe back toward their own knees. Like
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
really hard. It's awkward, so they just don't
Yep.
do it, and they just sit there and rasp that easy side. And then when they fit it, they rack their toe to where the medial's cheated again in the shoe, and then they get a nice round shape on the outside. And if they're side clamping, they don't burn those clips in, so they're hammering everything over. And I mean, it's just a perpetual snowball effect of ripping that medial toe, and
Man,
then
it's
that
crazy.
hoof capsule, the hoof capsule goes wry at that point, because that
Yep.
inside can only jam up so far before it finally starts to curl underneath. So the hoof wall will actually, medial hoof wall will curl underneath that coffin bone, And then however much the lateral's wanting to flare, it's just pulling the medial with it. And so then you end up with these hind feet that are pointing east and west, and the whole hoof capsule is actually bent, and I call that a rye hoof. That's an old terminology, but the definition of rye means basically, abnormally to one side. So if you have a center
Yep.
line and everything's abnormally going to the lateral, that's rye. Um, you guys podcasted my old buddy Shorty Gorham.
Yeah.
Oh, and I should say my dad has become like one of the biggest fans of Forge and Brain ever since we did
That's
our
so good.
yeah, ever since you guys had me on 2 years ago. I sent it to my dad. I was like, hey, you might want to check this out. And so he started listening to you guys. And I mean, he's listened to every episode. He always texts me, hey, they've come out with a new episode. And, a couple months back, he texted me and said, hey, they had Shorty on. And I go, no
Yeah.
way, man, because I grew up with Shorty and his brothers. I've known
Oh,
them
did
as
you?
long as, yeah, I've known them as long as I've known anyone. I can
Really?
remember
That's
playing
cool.
with, yeah, I can remember playing with Shorty and Travis Gorham, uh, before
Oh,
school ever, before we were even in
at the
school.
team pennants and probably
At,
stuff too, huh? Because I
at team
remember you
pennants,
saying that you guys were into the team pennants.
yeah, team pennants, rodeos, ropings, like those were my buddies, that we'd hook up and we'd just go play and have a big old time under the bleachers or out in the woods behind the Riverside Rancheros Arena. And then Shorty went away. Like I remember like at some point, didn't see Shorty
Yeah.
anymore. And I'd always see Travis and then their other brother Jeremy, come around quite a bit. And um, it's funny, Travis and Jeremy Gorham both married like best friends of my wife that she grew up with.
Oh
It was
wow.
really funny later on in life when we all started hanging out. Like, oh, we all married these girls from Norco that grew up together, and um, I really
Tight
enjoyed
knit
Shorty's
family.
podcast. Yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed Shorty's podcast, but I do have to call out a few little fibs he told.
Okay.
You know me, I got
Yeah,
stuff to
dude.
run this
Yeah.
straight.
When I re-listened to your last podcast, I was like, man, I can't wait for Travis's new truths because like your memory's so good that you're like, I'll line some things out for you
Yeah.
guys. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. Sure. So Shorty, I taught Shorty how to bullfight.
Okay.
Yeah,
Really?
I mean, that he said he started out there at Winchester Wild West. Well, that's where I was telling you guys that I was riding bulls and I was trimming the bucking string and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I would get hung up on purpose so that Shorty could learn how to get a guy unhung. I wasn't
Yeah.
I wasn't just falling off and getting hung up. I
No,
was
no, you
trying to
meant to
help
do
him.
that.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just kidding, man. I had nothing to do with that, but I do remember hearing like, "Hey, Shorty's starting to fight bulls," and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, man. We need some good bullfighters." Because back in those days, most bullfighters they would just do a bump, and then they'd go out there and they'd do a bump to get their courage up, and then they'd go out
Yeah.
there and just get wrung out, like they were
Yeah.
getting tossed and stomped, and it wasn't so much as a profession. The top guys were professional for sure, but there's guys that were mutual friends like Travis Schomburg and Travis Wananga that were bullfighters, at the time when Shorty started, and I would hear he's working with those guys, and man, he just became a legend so quick. It was amazing. But I mean, you want to talk about some horsemen? Those Gorham brothers are some good horsemen. Always have good stock. I remember being at a roping at that Winchester Wild West, and me and Travis Gorham were sitting there talking to each other. He had his leg over his saddle horn, and he was sitting there holding his loop, and we were talking, and somebody's horse got loose and was running up the arena fence behind him. And I mean, he never even stopped talking to me, and he just started spinning this loop like that, and he looked over his back and just threw this backwards horse loop in mid conversation and roped this horse that was at a dead gallop, man. Roped it right around the neck, and then got his leg off the horn and turned around and kicked his horse up and slowed that sucker down.
That's cool.
It was pretty cool, man. Oh, that's a
No, you can
problem.
always tell like families that are like raised around a lot of like animal stuff that like Shorty's good with any animals. You know what I mean? Like he makes good dogs. He can read a bull really well. And then even so, like pushing down a generation, Shorty's daughter I think her name's London. Like you watch her run barrels, and that girl could ride. Like she is like every once in a while you watch somebody run barrels, and you're like, well, okay, that's how it's supposed to be done. It's not supposed to be all crazy like that looks really nice, but it's like
Yeah.
you can tell those families that are like they got the animal kick. You know what I mean? Like they're really good at it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. Those guys are, all three of them are great horsemen. His brother Travis, he's a good horseshoer, man, and it's just it's so cool to, like my horseshoeing buddies, you guys that have a podcast, interviewed my bullfighting buddy, that I grew up with him and his family. I just thought that was crazy. But one
Oh
thing I'll
yeah.
say, like you guys asked Shorty, like what do you think's important in horseshoeing? What do you look at when you're going to shoe your own horse? And Shorty goes, man, I'd say getting the foot underneath the limb, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, here you guys have interviewed all these world famous
Yep.
horseshoers, and in a sentence, he gave probably one of the most important details you could give about horseshoeing. And, he talked a lot more about like kind of front to back, like anterior, posterior, like getting a solid angle and all that. But I mean, even side to side, that's such an important thing. But I mean, that's kind of my philosophy is look, you get these horses that are high outside on the front and their knees are dang near touching and their feet are way out there. And, they look like they're super toed out. And then
Yep.
you do them two times and get their foot trimmed up right and fit up right. And next thing you know, they've got pretty nice conformation all of a sudden. Like, and hind feet, getting those hind feet in line with the limb, like all of a sudden they stop bringing their hocks as much, and they can actually just kind of move in a nice straight pattern, and they're not uh, so yeah, when I heard Shorty say that, I was like, man, that's just so common sense but brilliant, and it came from a bullfighter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's is one reason why I started asking him questions about it because just in little talks we've had in the past, like me and him before, he'd lay little nuggets of gold that I was like, man, I didn't even think about that too much. But it is one thing I've noticed of you talking about your horseshoeing, and it's something that we, as competition horseshoers, get blamed a lot that we don't think about the trim. Where something I've just noticed in your talks is like you're thinking more about the trim than you are about what shoe or appliance you're going to put on that thing. Then, at least that's
a
what it
hun-
seems like.
oh, 100%. And I try to me, like terminology is quite important. Like if you when I say trim, a lot of times I'm talking more about trimming a horse to go barefoot.
Okay.
When I'm trimming a foot for a shoe, that's hoof prep. I'm preparing a hoof to accommodate a shoe for a given period of time, 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm
no, it's
making a
good. It's good.
foundation. It's like making the foundation for this house. Like that was a
Yep.
stepwise process to
Mm-hmm.
make this foundation that could bear the load of this house for a good extended period of time. And
Yep.
so, like Bob Marshall would say, well, I trim for strength and I trim for strength and support and I shoe for protection and traction. That's that's a way better idea than, oh, I just trim feet and then put a shoe on to support it. Like
Yep.
it doesn't matter. Like you could nail a shoe on that sticks out 4 foot behind the horse's heel. And if he's standing on a flat surface and he's got relatively normal conformation, he's got a sound suspensory ligament and superficial flexor. If he's standing statically, that's doing nothing. There's no extra support given. Now, if he has, a failing suspensory or flexor tendon and his toes wanting to come off the ground, then that leverage out past the heel can be looked at as support because it's leveraging the toe downward and keeping it from rocking up like this. So, the whole idea of support of shoeing a normal, a sound horse that has a good suspensory apparatus and flexor tendons, you're not supporting anything with heel extension and width. You're not
Right.
supporting anything. When that horse is standing statically, you're not doing anything. Now, when it starts moving and it's landing heel first or lateral heel first or whatever, you're actually uh, interfering with that horse's natural foot function. The more that extends out past the actual perimeter that God gave them, you're actually creating levers that will cause more slapping and harder falls. It's increasing force, like I talked about, the Newton's laws of physics or motion. Um, the more deviations a limb has, whether they're man-made or natural to that horse, the more extension you put out beyond that, the more it increases the force, and the
Yeah.
more it changes the vector, the direction of the limb. So you got one that really hits hard laterally, and you've got an inch of heel sticking out the side and out the back. Like, now that thing's going to hit even sooner than if the shoe wasn't there, and that's going to cause a greater secondary impact, which in turn is going to cause a greater equal and opposite reaction, not only in force applied to the soft tissues and the bony structures of the limb, but also in the vector or the direction that hoof is going to.
This episode is brought to you by Yukon Forge. Lately, John has come up with a new design on his punches. So previously they were wooden-handled punches, and now he's re-innovated his line where they're welded-on steel-headed punches. So he's got E-heads and City heads up on his website now. He's also got every other tool that you could need and use in your everyday practice available on his website, yukonforge.com. He's taken over the drive and hammer business from Flatland Forge, and now it's all Yukon Forge, and they have the Edward Martin style hammer as well with the thistle on there. You can check that out. I use it every day in my shoeing practice now, so it's dang sure it works pretty dang good, so I'm happy with it. John's also come up with the propane nut to make ease of tightening on your propane for your forge to the propane bottle and not have to have a wrench on hand. He's got the 2-pound hammers, 1 3/4 rounding hammers, 2.5, 2 1/4, anything you could need, he's got it on his website. He's also got replacement handles. If you need to replace a handle in one of your hammers, you can find those on there as well. So when you go to yukonforge.com, use code BRAINS and save yourself a little bit of money and get 10% off your order. I don't think of it a better idea than that. He's also got hoof knives on there, left-handed and right-handed. He's got tongs in every size that you can need, from 1/4 inch up to 1/2 inch and probably 5/8 inch as well. So go on his website and check him out. We really like working with John because he takes the time to figure out how to make each tool the best that it can possibly be. He's not trying to sell you some gimmick or something that just, it's going to be easier to make it this way. He actually takes the time, figure out the process on how to make this tool the best tool that it can be to last for your everyday work, and he wants to get your money's worth out of it as well. And John's also been there, done that throughout his career. He's been on the American Farriers team. He's judged multiple contests, and he's also had a full career as a farrier. And he's now just getting into bigger, better things. So go check him out, yukonforge.com. Thank you. I guess to kind of follow up with what we're talking about there with soundness is, I like that statement. Horses are sound. They're not sound because of us. They're sound in spite of us. They can do whatever they need to do.
There's a Craig Turnka quote.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's something Craig would always say that is very accurate. Horses can put up with so much right up until they can't. And man, when they can't put up with it anymore, it's a sad day in Dallas, as Ronald Madrid would say.
Sad day in Dallas.
So I definitely didn't want to stop talking about, hoof prep and balance and all that stuff. And I had a couple other kind of things occur to me on the bathroom break there. When you asked me, Riley, why it seemed like everybody leaves them high outside and low inside on fronts, a couple of firsthand things that I saw with my own eyes with guys that have worked for me and stuff that I was trying to help train up. I think a lot of it also comes from chasing flat. They whip out nippers when they should have whipped out a rasp. They see after they kind of knife out their sole and all that, they see a little bit of hoof wall sticking up and they're like, I better get my nippers. That'd be too much to rasp. And so then they take all that time to nip it all crazy and dip the quarters and, roll a heel off. And then they grab the rasp and then they go to chasing flat. And, next thing you know, they got a foot that's too short and, it's probably even worse on flat than what it was before they started. And they just develop it as a habit. And I've had guys, where you tell them over and over and you show them and you say, you got to step out and look at it from different angles. You got to, step out and sight down the long axis, before you nip. I'll do my sole prep, my frog prep, and then I'll step out and look again. I always dress my flare before I remove hoof. I might do my sole prep and frog prep and then remove my flare and try and get everything projecting out of the coronary band. And then, then I'll step out and look again. Now that I've revealed the height of that wall, then I'll look down that long axis again and look at my actual sole depth, the depth of my lateral and medial sulcuses or commissures, as some say. I'll look at the height of the frog, and once it's prepped, and then everything in relation to those anchor points. And then I'll decide what I'm going to, and I'll look at how much I actually have to come off. Is it worth nipping, or can it be done with a rasp? Because a lot of people say, oh, it's way quicker to nip and then rasp. Well, that's two processes. That's grabbing two different tools. A lot of times, if you got a nice sharp rasp, you can take that foot off quicker and, safer and flatter with a rasp than you can with the nippers. But it's also a pride thing. So many guys want to get in there and be, oh, I'm really good with my nippers. I'm quick and flat. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like this big ego stroke. And so then it ends up taking them twice as long as if they'd have just grabbed the rasp, and they end up with a crappier product at the end. And it becomes a perpetual, like a habit with these, and people just get in these ruts. And I've had some where you get them out of the rut, and I've had some where you just can't get them out of the rut, and, another thing I was thinking about was, concave. We were talking about concave and how it gets into the ground. The other beauty of it is it gets out of the ground. If you're in any kind of a wet footing, like I remember several years ago, they replaced all the footing down in Thermal, California, where they have the big jumping show down there for 6 months. And they put in this real advanced footing system that has a big old water bag. They dig out a big old arena, and then they put this water bag in, and then they put different layers of material on top so they can water it from the bottom. Or if it rains a bunch, they can suck the water out, which is kind of cool. But yeah, when they first did it, and Kyle and everybody showed up down there, at that time I was repping for Darren Bazin. He had come out with a concave shoe company, and he'd asked me to be his U.S. rep. So he had sent me some shoes, and I really liked his concave shoes. And then he came out with the bold shoe, and he told me, he goes, man, this is something when I was a young apprentice, like bold was really popular, and we made as many bold shoes as we made concave shoes. He goes, and then it just kind of disappeared. So he goes, it's something I want to bring back. And I go, well, that'll be really cool for the guys that think concave is too much traction. They could use a bold, and it's fullered all the way through the toe. So it's got a little more traction than, a 3/4 fuller, but it's not got the concave inner edge. And it's also highly modifiable if you want to do like cut out a medial branch or a lateral branch, if you're trying to get a ground reaction force thing going. And so I thought that shoe would be a big hit. Well, they just put in this new footing. Kyle just showed up with the horses from Canada. I shot about half of them in bold stock and half of them in concave. A few weeks later, I get a call from Kyle, and he says, hey man, I don't know what the heck's going on, but I've lost a couple of shoes on horses that we've never lost shoes on. And he goes, every time they pull a shoe, it's in this new footing, and they're making it really wet, trying to get it to settle. And he goes, every time they pull one, he goes, I hear this loud popping noise like you're popping a champagne bottle.
So it's like sucking it off.
I said, no kidding. I said, what horses have you lost shoes on? And I get my book out, and he tells me. I look, and it's every horse that I had bold. Every horse that had bold had lost a shoe. And so I went back down there, and I changed them horses out and put them back in concave, and we didn't have another problem. Well, a bunch of the other top riders were having the same problems, and a couple of them had hurt their good horses in that footing. And this was like the first couple of weeks of the show. That's like a 6-month series. They packed up and moved to Florida. A lot of the top riders were like, man, we're not going to risk this. We're going to Florida. Yeah. And Kyle stayed behind. We never lost another shoe, and he won, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think he was the high money winner that year for the whole thing, or maybe that was the next year. I can't remember which, but I mean, I remember my buddy Paul Duddy in Ireland. We were talking concave one time, and he said, man, we get so much rain. He goes, those horses out in the pasture, they're literally up to their knees in mud. And he said, the only shoe you can keep on is a concave shoe. And anything with an upright inner edge will create that little bit of that suction that'll, either suck the shoe off, or it'll just throw off their gait enough where they'll reach up and step on that heel with the hind foot and pull it off in the mud. That's something I think a lot of people don't think about too, is if you're getting suck in the ground, if that shoe's getting stuck by that suck, that can throw off their gait just enough to where they will interfere or step on a heel and rip a heel bulb off, or do a somersault, hurt the rider. So I always look at it like, I want a shoe that is as close to natural as possible, because that horse knows what it has. It's had those feet its whole life, and it knows where they're at. And the more you start doing your idea on there, and you start, interfering with God's idea with your own, the more issues that horse is going to have, the more that horse is going to have to think. If it gets out on the footing and its foot sliding more than what's normal, it's going to have to think about that, and it's going to have to change its game plan. It's going to lose its confidence. Like when I used to shoe some barrel horses, I would have these clients tell me, we need to put sliders on the back of my barrel horse because it drags its ass around the barrels. And I would say, I've been watching barrel racing since I was 4 years old, and I've never seen a horse drag its rear feet around a barrel. Like, they might slide the first couple approach strides to the barrel. It will set down and slide to slow its roll, but then it just starts digging and pushing as hard as it can with those hind feet to get around that barrel. And I'm like, I am not putting sliders on your barrel horse. I've never done that. I would never do that. Yeah. It's insane. And you watch the NFR, and they got all the slow-mo of these horses. There's not one horse dragging its hind feet around a barrel. I've never seen that.
No, that's something that's
hilarious.
Always been amazing to me too. Like, people, I put out some weird questions on Facebook every once in a while, and I was asking, like, why did we get away from caulkins on horseshoes? You know what I mean? Like, it's just something that height rarely gets used anymore. Like, everyone adds support or width a lot. Like, and it's pretty rare that you'll see someone add a caulkin onto a shoe. And a guy answered saying, like, well, it just doesn't fit my style of Western horses with barrel horses, roping horses, and this. And I'm just thinking, like, you watch so many of these barrel horses come around a corner, they might set that inside hind foot into the dirt for a second, but then they're right back onto their toes. Like you said, they're just checking up their speed on that inside hind foot, and then they're starting to get back on their toes. And, like, man, I know I rode a lot of head horses that I would have loved if that son of a gun would have had his hind underneath of them. We're like, I wonder why we're so far away from it, or we're afraid to just give a horse some traction. And everybody always boasts that they're afraid of the hocks, ruining the hocks. And it's like, I would be afraid that a lack of traction is going to ruin the hocks. Like,
100%, man. When a horse is pushing off, there is so much force being generated by that horse's hind end to push and get their body moving forward. If that toe slips, especially at that critical moment where the heel is up and they've got all the force in the world on that toe, if that thing slips all of a sudden because there's a square toe that's set way back and a wide web and all this stuff, and then slick footing on top of that, when they slip, man, they're going to hyperextend that hock, and that's going to cause issues. And when I worked at the rehab facility, we saw so many hock issues, like so many. Like, almost every horse that came in, maybe their primary issue was a medial collateral or something like that on the front end. Well, their secondary was almost always a hock or a stifle. And like I say, they were all shot in flat steel, side clips. It used to be when I first started, almost everybody used St. Croix rims, light rims and standard rims, and that was the go-to shoe. And I feel like, man, we had way less issues back then than we do now. It seems like once you started coming out with all these different shoe selections, and you started coming out with pre-made side clips on everything, and people just started pounding those into the foot, making a side clamp, that's when, like, a whole new Pandora's box got opened with lamenesses, and skill went out the window, because it's like All you got to do is drive 4 nails now, and they can only, you can drive them that high. Like the clip, most of them are like clenched onto the clip. Me and
Yeah,
Dallas
they
Morgan,
are.
Drives me
yeah,
nuts.
me and Dallas Morgan would always joke around like, man, if they would have just tack welded that clench to the clip, that shoe could never come off. It'd be the perfect attachment. Um,
Oh,
but there's like, once that happened, it was like, man, nobody needs any skill anymore, because you could just take the shoe out of the box, find a place where you can get 2 nails in, and then pound those clips on, and that's all it takes.
we fit the shoe for you.
It's
Yep. So you
so
don't have
sad
to.
when you say, like, man, like it kind of ties a lot of what we've talked about here this morning together. Of like, you remember that shaper coming out saying that like we do the work so you don't have to, and it kind of is the name of the game right now of like smother and cover. That's kind of what horseshoes are made to do. They're all wide web, a lot of sole relief. You can get that sucker short and not sore them up at all. Like, like these like almost set back nail patterns, like it is kind of a sad deal. Now, like it made me just kind of realize it a lot of like we've done a lot of this to ourselves, and we probably have created a lot of long-term injuries as a whole.
Yep.
Just by making the day easier.
Yep. And if you think about modern vets, somebody that's been to vet school in the last 15 years, and they've come out, they've been practicing, they've never seen a good shoeing job. Most of them, they've only seen that cookie cutter, set back toe, side clamp. They've only seen that quarter rasp off. They've not seen round, shoes that go out and around quarters and actually fit the perimeter. And they have no experience with them. So when they see it, it's foreign to them. And maybe some that are good horsemen see it and they're like, oh, maybe that's right. But the majority aren't horsemen. So it doesn't dawn on them that maybe that's right and the cookie cutter is wrong. So that's a problem we face, and it's up to us. We have to educate the vet community about our trade. We have to show them that there is a better way.
How do you think we can go about that as a whole? Because obviously, like a little bit, just us educating vets, but like, how do we expedite this process? How do we get a hold of this deal?
Well, I think my generation of guys, us older guys, we need to really do that. Like we need to reach out. We need to, like this clinic, I'm going to be going on Wednesday up to Northern California to do a benefit clinic for Nick Rossi, who got hurt. And it's, my buddy Brian Graham is the host of it. He's organizing it for me and all that. And me and him, he called me to come do a clinic at this new facility that him and this vet, Jim, I think it's Myers, are working together. They've built Brian a shoeing shop and everything at their clinic. And Brian told me, he's like, man, this vet is awesome. He came to me, showed me some pictures of a horse's feet and said, what do you think? And I said, man, those feet are hammered. And he goes, yeah, those are my horse's feet, my personal horse. He's like, you think you could help? And Brian was like, yeah, I could help the horse, man, but I got to do it my way. And so he started shoeing the horse, like toe clips, fitting the feet, and, got the horse fixed up good for him. And now they've forged a bond, and a professional relationship. Yep. And Brian's like, man, this guy is so awesome to work with. And, he finds things that other vets totally miss. And he's like, you're going to love this guy. So we're going to go up and do this clinic. And it's all kind of Brian's idea. We're going to do a 3-day hands-on clinic for 10 people in the hands-on. And we wanted like kind of journeyman level people that could come in and they could make a side bone shoe to fit if need be. But we're going to bring horses in. We're going to go over the evaluation steps that I use, and maybe the doctor is going to get involved and give us some other things to look at. But I'm going to kind of go through the whole process like I'm showing up to a new account. I'm going to show them how the questions I would ask the owner or rider before I ever touch the horse. And I'm going to show them exactly what I look at on the feet and the shoeing, and then how I look at the horse move, and then how I come up with a game plan, because you got to visualize it before you do it. Like if you can't visualize it before you do it, don't even start. Like you're not going to do anything good. So I'm going to go through that whole process of how to visualize what that horse should look like, what its feet should look like, what its conformation should look like, and then the steps necessary to get there. And the cool thing, like if we got a horse that needs some radiographs or ultrasounds or whatever diagnostics from the vet, we're going to do that. We're going to take our time and do that. And then we're going to have the hands-on guys do the work. I'll do a demo. And then the hands-on guys they're going to team up in teams of 2 with one horse. And then we're going to come up with a game plan for each horse for whatever it needs. And then these guys are going to execute, and I'm going to go along and offer advice on the way through. And then we're going to have as many people audit as want to be there. And so it's almost going to be like I'll be giving a clinic to the 10, and then the 10 will be given or the auditors, however many there is, they'll be getting a clinic from the 10 and from me, giving the clinic to the 10. And then after we're done, we're going to reevaluate everything, maybe take more pictures, more x-rays, whatever, watch the horses go either on the line or under saddle. And then once that's all done, then we're going to have a dinner, and then I'll be doing a presentation at dinner. Not so much a PowerPoint. I'm not a PowerPoint guy, but what I like to do is just link my phone up and show pictures. Like here's what I see. Here's why it happens. Here's what I do. Here's a before and after. Here's some slow-mo videos to show, things I look at, and just kind of give some ideas. And so the whole idea is, and we're going to talk also a lot about vet farrier relationships at that, because, not only do the farriers need to be trained, the vets need to be trained. And so, hopefully guys like this vet, Dr. Jim, hopefully, he can be a big part of trying to build this bridge that we need to build to get us all working as a team instead of against each other. And, there's simple things I always talk about. Like one of the worst things in the world is when a vet shows up and the horse is at say 5 weeks since it's been shot, and the vet is there to give a vaccine or something, and he looks down, he's like, "Oh, it looks like your farrier left him a little long this time." And the owner's like, "Oh, time. Really?" And then that little seed starts to grow into a big old thing. Well, the vet should have said, "Hey, when is your horse due for shoeing?" And the owner could say, "Oh, next week." And then the vet would be like, "Oh, cool, he looks good for 5 weeks," instead of, "Oh, he looks like he left him long." And so little things like that, like they don't even know they're doing it, but man, it makes our life tough. And I mean, I've had that cost me accounts in the past, just little offhand comments, that the vet didn't even realize. And it just grows into that little tiny seed turns into a big old massive weed in the mind of that horse owner. And you just can't ever get it out of there after that. So, we've got to almost teach a decorum to them. Because, I mean, how often do you hear of a farrier showing up and evaluating the vet's work? Not very often. But I could show up. No. I could show up and be like, "Hey, there's a lump on the neck where that vet gave that horse a shot. Man, you need a new vet." Like we would get our pantsuit off us if we did that. But yet they can come rolling up for something unrelated to horseshoeing and ruin our career. So they need to know that, because most of them don't know that. And I don't think hardly any of them ever want to do that, but it happens just because there's not been like a formal meeting of the minds to like kind of lay out like, "Hey, here's how we need to kind of interact with the clients on each other's behalf to make this work better for everybody." And I mean, we've all had it happen where the vet shows up for a lameness and the vet, does their workup, they figure something out or they don't. And they make a guess. That's off. A lot of times, that's more often than not. They start throwing things against the wall to see what sticks. Well, why in the world? And maybe they'll give a prescription to the owner, and it'll be a verbal one. And so then when you get there a week later, the owner's like, "Yeah, I think the vet said something about a wedge PLR and setting the toe back," and maybe the vet didn't say that, but that's what it's turned into as time went by, like the rumor mill game. Well, why would the vet not take a second and say, "Hey, could I have your farrier's phone number? I'd like to talk to him while I'm standing here looking at the horse." Because I see this horse once or twice a year. They see this horse 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 times a year, depending on the schedule. Next to you, that farrier knows this horse better than anybody else on the planet. So I want to talk to them because, maybe that farrier maybe there was a heel bruise last time that vet don't know about. Maybe there's a white line infection under that shoe that vet and owner don't know about. Like, why would you not want to call and talk to that farrier for a minute? Nowadays, we have this magic thing called a text. You could actually just send a couple little sentences in type, like dit, 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 and you could get back a couple little sentences that could be a game changer in your veterinary diagnosis of this horse. And we could all get along so much better and have such an easier life without doing that like rumor mill stuff with the owner. So that's the stuff. Every clinic I get, every chance I get to get in front of farriers, I always bring that up because, you know, part of the problem's ours because we go with a chip on our shoulder now. Like if you just lost a 50 head account because a vet came in and said they looked a little long at 5 weeks, like you suddenly start hating vets. And I understand it. And I've been there.
It out for 'em.
You do. Like you're going to punish every vet you meet from there on out because they're all capable of ruining your life. So we gotta nip that in the bud. It's been going on for far too long. So yeah, I'm hoping that this clinic and what we want to do with this benefit for Nick is we want to do a series of 3 of these 3-day clinics, and we want to bring back the same guys and shoe the same horses at maybe like a 5 or 6 week interval, so that we can track the progress of these methods that I want to show these guys. And it's not world changing stuff. It's very simple stuff. And it's a lot of it is just fine tuning. And the idea is to take some really good horseshoers and try and make them great horseshoers, you know, and then get that trickle down effect going. And a vet to a farrier is a great tool. So most of us don't know how to use that tool at all. And most of us are intimidated of vets. We don't think we speak the same language. And so it's like we can't communicate. Well, you can. Like most of them know slang. Most of them know our horseshoer slang. Like if you talk to them in whatever language you know, you can figure it out, you know, and you can create great relationships where they're an asset to you and they will have your back and they will help protect you and vice versa. So I think that's something we all got to work toward, you know, instead of just being like, oh, screw them, man. That's not the way to go. And I've been there. I've been very, you know, disenfranchised with certain vets throughout my career. But man, when you get a good one, like there's no better asset to have in your corner, you know, than a good vet that is knowledgeable and is willing to work with you, you know, and ask your opinion.
And even if you get a bad one, you're going to catch more with hunting than you are, you know, it's like than shit. So it's like,
oh yeah,
try still being cordial, be professional, look nice. Don't show up looking like a horseshoer ready for it, you know, on the 3rd day of competition. Show up looking kind of clean cut and ready to go. I do look at it a little bit as a competition each time I have to work with a vet right now. I'm probably going to brush up on my anatomy terms the night before if I know what a case we're going to work on. And I'm going to probably sweep the rig out at least, you know. So it's like when I show up that next day, I look like I'm not a scrungy horseshoer. I'm trying, even if it's a vet that I know I don't work well with together, I'm going to try real hard to just be cordial with them, because then that maybe we might start a relationship where we can have some communication going then.
Just be professional.
Can you...
Yeah.
Can you guys see the writing on that? Not to where you could read it, but just see there's like a couple little paragraphs. Can you see that at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's hard because it's in pencil, but that's like the itinerary of the clinic we're going to do. It's a couple of paragraphs for a 3-day deal. And then I've got 3 pages. I've got 3 pages of notes written of anatomy terminology, Koonzagi terminology, little ideas that I want to convey during that clinic, you know, like I was talking about Newton's laws of motion and stuff. You know, everybody loves like all the Denois ground reaction force stuff, like, and it has its place for sure, and it can be very advantageous, but it could also be terrible. Like if you got a vet that doesn't really know what they're doing with that, and a farrier that doesn't know what they're doing with that. Like I had a horse come in with I think it was a lateral collateral, and they wanted basically the side weight type collateral shoe on there. Well, they had the fat branch on the wrong side. You know, they were floating. Oh boy. instead of trying to keep the lateral, you know, floating to where it didn't stretch that ligament anymore, they had it on the medial with the thin branch under the lateral, like, and the horse was almost healed up, but it was like, I go, did they just mess up last time? And the guy's like, no, we've been buying those shoes, and that's the one he puts on every time. It's been going on for a year and a half now. So it's like, they got lucky that it didn't just completely, sever that lateral collateral,
Yeah,
but,
holy
Oh
cow.
yeah.
yeah, so there, I think we lose, like, horseshoers are so bad about, like, if a little is good, then a lot's got to be great. So you start doing these wider branches, these lateral extensions, but and they just start going to the extreme, man. And horses don't like
Well, it
extreme.
has.
Yeah, horses
Yeah,
don't
like you
like
look at that
extreme.
one
Horses,
Freedom shoe.
oh,
Like,
dude, I first saw those at the
just cover
reining
the whole
barn.
foot. Just cover it.
I first saw those at the reining barn, man. They brought in this foundered broodmare, and I mean, it took her 10 minutes to walk from her stall to the shoeing rack. And I mean, 4.5 to 5 lame out of 5. And I get her in
Jeez
there. It
Louise.
takes forever to get her foot off the ground. And I see this Freedom shoe, and I'm like, what in the heck is this? And you can just see her quarters rasp off down to the shoe, the toes hack. And she's in agony. I pull them off, and they're just full of mud. The shoe with all
Yeah.
the mud weighs
Yeah.
about 5 pounds. And,
Yeah.
so I prep her up, and I put her in, I actually had some of those bold shoes from Bazin I was talking about. I put her in some of those with a frog support pad and arch support material, and dressed the dish out of her toe, and, I walked her in a circle inside the cross tie, and she was immediately like walking instead of hopping over her feet. And then I walk her down the barn aisle, and now she's like a 2 out of 5. Like, after shoeing, like, foundered horses are normally worse. So I was just like, dang, man, what is this industry coming to? And I get, like, the old central bear. That's a version of the old central bearing shoe, like out of Dollar and Wheatley's, horseshoeing manual or horseshoeing book back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's a terrible excuse of it's nothing like the real central bearing shoe. Like, it's a cookie cutter square shape.
No.
So you got to fit feet to it. You can't fit it to a foot. And, the thing people don't get, like, people are actually trying to use those as a performance horseshoe. Oh man, like maybe on a
Like
horse
very,
who their
very
whole leg
common.
is fused. Yeah, if they've got like ankylosis of the whole lower limb, like, maybe, throw that on there to get them through their last days out in the pasture. But please don't put that on a horse that's going to go out and show in an arena. Like, that is crazy. Oh man. And foot prep, man, it's such a big thing. Like, you were kind of pointing out that you feel like that's something that I really kind of harp on and is really important to me. I'll say, like, going to Australia to judge ECA this summer. I think we had about 85 competitors down there, and I got my buddy Mick Fitzgerald. Got my buddy Mick Fitzgerald to be my co-judge down there, and man, we hadn't seen each other since he was over here, back in the day, and so that was super cool, getting to work with Mick, and got to see Jukesy down there. That was super cool because I listened to the Farewell podcast. Not farewell,
not
but
goodbye,
see
farewell.
you later. Yeah. So Jukesy came and competed, which was super cool. That meant a lot to me, that he came and threw his hat in the ring, and man, we had a good time. And I'll tell you what, like, the open division and the kind of division 2 level, the trimming, the foot prepping was rough, man. Jukes did a good job. Jukes did a good job, like always, but there was some rough stuff, and Mick was like embarrassed, and he's like, oh, I don't know what to say about this, man. Well, then we judged like the division 1 and the novice, and their foot preps were like spot on, like beautiful. We're giving 9s. They're prepping for their bosses, and their bosses aren't prepping no more. So it was like, you were seeing all kinds of crazy stuff with their bosses, but the new generation, they're keen and they're working hard, and they're putting people. I think people get to a certain point with their trimming and their foot prep where they're just like, it's pretty solid. I'm good there. Well, they don't realize, like, every foot you get the opportunity to work on should be another chance to try and achieve perfection. That's how I look at it. Like, I've yet to achieve perfection, but I'm going to do it this time. And when I'm done, I'm like, yeah, I didn't get it this time, but maybe next time. And that keeps you moving forward. That keeps you working hard. It keeps you learning. And it's real easy to, especially with a helper, to get complacent, where you just, You don't trim the back feet anymore. That's the helper's job. And so I used to see that a lot in California, all the guys that ran big crews, like, man, they never trimmed the back feet. And that's the motor of the
Yep.
horse, man. But the reason being is it's harder to detect lameness. That helper would go in there and lame that horse up or leave it way too long in the toe and way too short in the heel and way out of balance. And the horse can still go do its job. So it's a place they feel,
Yep.
oh, it's safe to put the helper to learn. Well, the helper never ends up learning because the master never gets under there and looks at it. And then they eventually lose their skill set because they're not using it. And it's a downhill snowball. I think so much of our skill, our success, all that is how do we look at things? Not just like how do we physically look at them, but what's our perception of ourselves? Do we just want to live in this little comfortable bubble where we're the king of our own little world and we've got all these helpers that think we're godlike? Or do we want to go throw our hat in the ring and get our cojones kicked up into our Adam's apple by a judge that's got a little more experience than us?
Yep.
That's where competition is so great. Like, it humbles you. You get to see what other people are doing. You get to try and put your best work out there and get an opinion. There's nothing else like it in our industry. You can go to all the hands-on clinics and stuff in the world you want, but to actually go get under the clock, pay money to get entered up, and then go get told you suck and you're last place or whatever like that. That's the greatest thing that could ever happen to you, but most people
it
don't
is.
want nothing to do with it.
Since day one of Forging Brains podcast, Farrier Box has wanted to work with us, and we love the fact that Farrier Box works with Forging Brains podcast. Every other month, they're sending you a box of tools that you can put straight to work in your everyday practice. They're not tools that have just sprung on the market. They're actually tools that have been tested and used to figure out if these are actually worthy products that you can actually put to work. I personally know that Bodie Turnka, he's the one that tests these products and makes sure that they are worthy enough to be sent out in the Farrier Box. So go to their website, farrierbox.com. You can use the code BRAINS, and that'll get you 25% off your first month's box. That's a pretty damn good deal. Pretty much in every box that has come, I have implemented them in my day-to-day practice. So this last month, with the Virginia WCB on the next list for an individual contest, it came with a set of tongs and 2 pieces of steel just to get you started on your practice, so you can have a jump start on figuring out how to make them shoes. There's also another product in there that was recommended by a previous guest on Forging Brains, Tyson Clark, because he is actually the judge for the upcoming Virginia contest. So if you're looking for something to spicing up your everyday shoeing practice, look at Farrier Box as a way to innovate your shoeing practice and just kind of introduce you to different tools that you may not necessarily try and get by just searching online and get them. They're going to send them to you without the hesitation that you may or may not want it. And then you get to try them and test them out whether you like them or not. 9 times out of 10, I'm using every product that gets sent to me in the Farrier Box, so you won't be disappointed with anything that gets sent to you. So check it out, farrierbox.com. Use code BRAINS. Save yourself 25% off your first month's box. And then every other month after that, you'll be receiving the great old Farrier Box in the mail. In a constructive manner, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not actually being told you suck, but
if you've got the right mentality, if you've got the right perception of yourself, if you keep yourself in the right, in check, you keep your pride in check and your ego in check, like, man, it's a great place to be. But if you've let your ego outgrow your skill set, then going and getting judged is not for you.
It's gonna hurt.
Yeah, because you kind of have to be, and not even just like fully your ego. It's like it's just not about you. It's about the horse. Like you took on a job that has a live animal that's involved with it, and you don't get to just be like. I mean, you can just hide in your hole and be the god, But it's like you need to accept that it's not about you, and you got to go and build your skill set a little bit so you can help out this animal that you've taken custody to. So it's like. I think it's hard for people to hear it, but don't think of it as a hit against you. Think of it as a building block for this animal that you're going to help out.
It's funny you mentioned that. I wrote a little teaser before before a clinic or contest I was going to judge years ago, and it was just kind of like what horseshoeing competition means to me kind of thing. And I sent it to a friend to put it out on Facebook to kind of get people, thinking about coming. Put almost that
Yeah.
exact line in there that, eventually I learned that competition isn't about me. It's about the horse, and then I also kind of went into,
Yep.
think about what the horse has done for us. They're the beast of human burden. They're what we use to, crack open the earth to plant a field. They're what we use to grade the roads to come across the country. They're what we use to ride into battle, and run up the side of a mountain to, chase a cow that's trying to get away, or, and then we, put a human on them and expect them to jump 6-foot fences, and then we put our little baby girl
Yeah.
on them and pray to God that they carry her safely through that barrel pattern, and like
Yeah.
those poor things, they just do everything we need. And every now and then you get a rogue one, that's not worth nothing, like the one that kicked Nick Rossi's head in. I'd love to meet that horse, would
Yeah.
love to run into that horse in a dark alley. Uh, they,
Man, so you got a clinic coming up. You said you're going to go to a clinic Wednesday.
yeah.
How about you tell us a little? You mentioned Nick in your first podcast some, but how about you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about Nick and what's the like where the event's going to be at and everything, so people can kind of get and kind of what's happening with him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Nick Rossi is one of my best friends. We've been friends more than 20 years now, I'd say. He was a Northern California guy. I was Southern California. We met at a contest. He'd been working with Bob and Robbie. Just a super cool guy. Like the minute we met, we became fast friends. He started driving down from the Bay Area to my house, which is, an 11, 12-hour drive, I think. He'd come down almost every weekend. He'd work all week with Bob or Robbie and Grady Mykrantz. And then he, and his own horses too. He was already, CJF level by the time I met him. But he would come down and spend a weekend or even a week sometimes. He'd go shoe with me. We'd make shoes, just have a killer time, man. He's such a good guy. Like I say, help me roof my garage, whatever needed to be done. Nick's the guy. And, about, I forget what year he moved to Montana, but maybe somewhere between 2018, 2020. And, he's been up there ever since. And, he shoot, you can imagine you start shooting in Montana, you're probably doing a lot of backyard stuff. You probably, you're going tying a horse to a T-post that has barbed wire on it because it's the only thing to tie the horse to, and the wind's whipping. And so there, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And the whole time Nick's still like making every shoe he nails on, tons of concave. When I went up there and visited him, I think it was last month or maybe almost, yeah, I think it was last month. Anyway, I'm out there kicking through Nick's shoe pile, man, and there's just these beautiful concave shoes in there that got real feet in them. The forge work's amazing. The clips are perfect. All the nails you can just see, the old nails are in perfect alignment, beautiful clinches. I'll say, I forgot to tell you, last winter I got hurt. I rolled my ankle one night going out to do some plumbing, and I ruptured my peroneus longus tendon, which is, if you compare it to horse anatomy, it would be like a lateral collateral ligament, a deep flexor tendon, and a suspensory ligament all in one. So it's rather important. Damn. It's what you push off. It's what you use to run or jump. And it also, allows you to do any rotational movements with your foot and ankle. And I rolled that ankle so hard and ripped that tendon. And I mean, when I went to put my heel down, I couldn't get it within 6 inches of the ground. It was bad. And so once I got to the podiatrist and got the bad news, of what it was and what the layup was and all that, got my moon boot on, and I sent a picture to Nick, just, hey, check it out. And he doesn't even ask what happened. He just writes back, when do you need me? And so I ruptured that thing the day after getting my horses done, my first day home. And so that was a blessing right there, because I had 4 weeks before I had to be back. So I got good 4 weeks of layup. And so Nick flew down from Montana. I picked him up in Phoenix. We went to California, man. He shod almost every horse in my barn. A couple other guys, Brant Chastain and Josh Dittmer showed up, did a few horses, and Nick was actually pissed about that because he wanted to shoot every horse for me. Such a good friend, and doing it my way, and like, what do you think of this? Or no pride, just like, I got to shoe these the way you would shoe them. And it was so awesome. Everybody in the barn loved Nick and was so thankful for him. And fast forward to a couple months back, I'm up in Canada shoeing the horses, and on a Wednesday I get a call from Nick, and we have a nice hour-long chit chat on a break between horses and catch up. And then I'm flying home, I think on Sunday, and I land in Phoenix, and I turn my phone on, and there's a text from Nick's wife, Marissa, asking for prayers, asking us to start praying for Nick because he got kicked in the head and it's really bad. And, I was just like, it was just one of the moments where my heart stopped, and I was just like, how bad is this? How bad is it? I know how bad it can be, but how bad is it? And I'm at the airport. I'm thinking, man, I should probably just jump on a plane right now and fly to Montana. But, I can't really get a hold of Marissa. She's at the hospital. It had happened like a day or so, I think one day before she texted me, maybe two. Because like I say, he was pretty much technically dead when it happened. And so it was very touch and go. They life flighted him into the hospital and put plates in his head to pop his skull back out where it's supposed to be. And then that night, the night watch left him unattended for a few minutes, and that tough bastard got out of bed and fell and hit his head. But,
golly.
You can imagine somebody that just went through all that, there's probably a 0.1% chance of them getting out of bed. And, of course, Nick did.
Right.
And so once I do get a hold of Marissa, I'm like, hey, I'm going to come up and shoe horses. And she's like, well, we can't even get into Nick's phone where all his business, all his clients' addresses and schedules and all that, like it's all locked in his business phone. His facial ID won't even work right now to open it up. It not only broke his skull,
wow.
Broke his cheek. Oh, it's gnarly, man. And,
unreal.
Doctors didn't even know what to expect. They didn't even know what to tell him, man. And then the next day, Nick can't move his right side. He can't talk. Nothing's coming out. Like it just mumbles and stuff. And then the day after that, he could, twitch his fingers on the right side, wiggle his toes. And then the day after that, they got him out of bed, assisted walking. His brother Jonathan shows up and he sees Jonathan and flips him off. And then when I heard that, I was like, okay, that's Nick, man. He's still in there.
Humor's coming
he's,
back.
He's going to make it. If anybody can make it, he can. And so like I say, he's like the rest of us. He's a strong-willed person. He's got his pride. He's the first one to help when somebody else needs it, but the last one to take help when he needs it. So that's what my urgency was. I want to get up there and take care of these horses before Nick has any say in the matter, because he's going to say no. Well, he started making such a quick comeback by the time they got around to, telling him I want to come up and do horses and other people want to come up and do horses. Nick's like, nope, we're not doing that, and so the clients were basically told, find somebody locally because we don't know how long this is going to take. And so when I finally came up, it was just to visit and hang out. And it's just crazy. It's crazy to see your best buddy, having to learn to walk and talk again, and, and having to be vulnerable, a guy who's just always been a man's man. And,
yep.
And now there's this vulnerability of, he has to search for words, and, but it's amazing. He's up first thing in the morning before anybody else. He's out there doing the chores, feeding the cows, walking the dogs. He's got this fancy way of making coffee that takes like a half hour to make a cup. And he's doing that, cooking breakfast, like doing all these things that I can't even do, and he's doing them within a couple of weeks of being technically dead. Amazing guy.
Unreal.
So yeah, the way I found, I get this call from Brian Graham saying, hey, I got this great opportunity with this vet clinic and our new facility, and I want to do a open house kind of clinic, and I want to help the farriers become better. I want to, help the vets get better. And so I say, hey, you hear about Nick? And he goes, no, what? And I tell him about Nick. I said, man, I've been looking for a way to honor and bless Nick somehow. if you're willing to do a benefit, make this a benefit, that could be great. And Brian's like 100%, let's do this. I want to help Nick. So that became the focus then, and like Nick's brother, Jonathan, he's going to come cook for everybody. His mom and sister's going to come and help out. And, there's just all these people just wanting to help out. It's an awesome thing. Makes me so proud of our community and then Raleigh was like blowing my phone up. Like, we got to go shoe Nick's horses. We got to help Nick. Tom Peterson hit me up. He's like, man, I heard about Nick. One of his clients reached out, I'm going to go shoe it, but I want to make sure everything's cool and I can't get a hold of Nick or whatever. So, just everybody stepping up. Raleigh started doing the Facebook auctions. People started donating stuff. And, when Nick finally found out about it all, he was just like blown away. Couldn't believe, how everybody's reaching out to help him. And, I'm like, dude, you don't even understand how well respected you are in this industry. Like, we'll all help anybody, all horseshoers want to help horseshoers when it hits the fan, but like Nick is so much more respected than he'll ever realize. Probably, the people that really know him know that he's just that guy that has that iron will, that he's going to shoe horses the best he can, no matter what the circumstance. And, and nobody's ever going to see this horse out in some field in Montana, but he's going to put handmade concave on it that fits to the nines, and he's going to nail it to the nines. And that's just the kind of guy he is. And so it's cool because Nick got released for travel. So him and Marissa are going to come down too. They're going to be at the clinic. So that's going to be awesome. Cool. And it's in Sebastopol, California, which is kind of in the Santa Rosa, Petaluma area. Which is, Nick, that's kind of where Nick worked, in that Bay Area of Northern California. So, all the guys he grew up with and worked for and all that, hopefully will be coming to support and see Nick at least, and, it'll be exciting to see how it all pans out. And hopefully we can do that. Hopefully there'll be enough interest where we could do that 3 clinic series. 'Cause we've all seen it, man. People get hurt. Everybody's down for that benefit clinic. Everybody's down to support. Well, as soon as you see the guy up walking around again, most of us just kind of, you get back to your daily life and
he's good.
He's good now. And a lot of times they're not, with a serious injury, you're going to need some help. And those medical bills start rolling in sometime months after. And you think you got great insurance until you get those $100,000 bills, so hopefully we can do something that will continue to be able to help support and bless.
Does that clinic family. Does it start on Thursday this week, or is it Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Yeah. It starts on Thursday.
November 6th.
What is that? The 6th? Yeah. So it's the 6th, 7th, and 8th. And
I'll try to get this episode out on Wednesday, so maybe that'll kind of give people some time to get down there if they're able, but we're cutting a little short on time.
At least hear about it for the part 2, that'll be good.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
That's the thing.
The good part about this too is that, like, I try to tell people this a lot, like, the best insurance you can have as a horseshoer is a community. Like, if you don't invest into a community and gain a community, then all of a sudden you get hurt and you don't have anybody to shoe your horses or to help you out. Like, even if you do have good insurance to help you monetarily or take care of your things, like, you don't have anybody to, like, help you with the other parts, where it's like, if you have a community and you have friends that you can trust, like, they come through, and that's something you have to pay into beforehand.
Yeah, that's why, you shouldn't walk around being a cocky, egotistical punk, because you've won a contest and you got a buckle, like, because you never know, dude, that guy that comes up, and wants to learn something from you that, you're like, oh, that dude's just a side clamping hack. I'm not going to waste my time teaching him to draw a clip. Well, that might be the one guy that shows up when you really need it. That might be the one guy that has time to come and shoe your horses and doesn't want to take your horses, So yeah, it's really important. Just be a decent human being and, treat people nicely and help spread the knowledge that you've been given. And, maybe those people will be there when you need a hand.
I was in that situation a few years ago.
Yeah.
I had broken my hand.
We all will be, man. Mm-hmm. You shoe horses long enough, man, we will all be in that position. where we need
Yep.
somebody because it's either give away your whole business because you're going to be laid up for 6 months, or have some really good friends that will take on that burden and not try and steal your horses.
Yeah,
It's that simple. So, uh,
it is.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully it all just goes really well, and we can keep doing it, and we can get at least 3 of them in there, and that way they'll kind of be staggered out, and help with those bills that'll be coming in and stuff.
Is there any other way other than, like, say somebody's not able to attend that clinic? Is there somebody else that they could contact, say they want to help Nick out just by listening to this podcast? Who should they contact if they want to help out Nick or donate something to auction off or donate money to? Who should they contact? Raleigh?
Yeah, so I don't do any social media. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something Raleigh could definitely help with. She's been running those online auctions. Like, if you got something you're willing to donate, that people might want to bid on, you could contact Raleigh Desiato, send her a picture of some decent pictures of what you want to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she'd probably do that for you. And then you would just be responsible for shipping the item to whoever bought it, kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
I wanted to do kind of like a GoFundMe type thing, but I think that was kind of pushing the boundaries of what Nick could tolerate at the moment. Uh,
Yeah.
you could reach out to me too. I could definitely try and help if there's some way to put something together. Um, what I also, whatever clinics I get, contests I do this year, like, it's all what my day rate's going to Nick. I'm going to be doing NCC and the Edward Martin Draft Classic are being kind of joined
Oh,
together
cool.
this year. And Don Gustafsson called me and
Nice.
asked me to, I've judged both of those in the past and competed at NCC for years. So Don said they're going to combine them and try a different thing this year. And so he said they wanted to see if I could do it. And I said, yeah, you bet. So yeah, that's another, whatever I get, like, for that kind of,
You
judging
said
clinics, things like that's going to
you
go
said
ahead.
the NCC and the Edward Martin perpetual. They're
Yep.
combining those.
Yep. That's correct.
And so, for people that don't
Good. Yeah.
know, what consists of that Edward Martin? Because that's just a lot of draft shoeing and stuff there, 2-man, right?
Traditionally, yeah, it's been all draft horse forging classes, and then draft horse team shoeing classes. The format, we haven't quite settled on that yet, because it's going to be a little bit of NCC and it's going to be some draft. So I think it'll actually be a good blend, because there are certain guys or farriers that just won't. They don't want nothing to do with a draft horse. So it kind of limits your Edward Martin
Yeah.
style competition, where it's all draft. There's certain people that are intimidated of the heavy iron and the big feet and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yep.
think combining the two might actually be a good thing, because then we'll have different divisions and things like that. I'm kind of excited to see what Don and Alice come up with for formats, and then I'll come up with the shoe lists and stuff. And I think it's going to be a 3-day. It's going to be like, I think it's the last day of April and the first 2 days of May, if I remember right. So something to keep on the
That's really
radar.
cool.
Yeah.
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 No, I think
Yep.
that's a good idea for them to join those two together. I think that'll be great.
Yeah. And then I've got, like, my buddy Jason Job. He said he's going to, do like a horse a month and send that to Nick. So can you guys hear me?
Nice.
Cool.
Last time we were on, you gave us your Mount Rushmore, and you had Jay Sharp on there, and you said that you had some great Jay Sharp stories. Is there a couple stories or a story that you could share with us?
Oh man. Did I tell any last time? I can't remember.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll start with my very first time meeting Jay, and it was my first Calgary I went to in '03. And I didn't know what I was doing, at all. I didn't own a Coke Forge. I might have told you the story though about going out to Dallas's in New York to use his Coke Forge the week before, because I'd never worked out
Yep.
of one. All right, so then I flew straight from New York to Calgary, and I got there like 2 days early, and because it just didn't make sense to fly all the way back to Cali and then fly all the way back to Calgary. So, and I figured, oh, there'll be tons of farriers in town. I'll meet some people. It'll be cool. But being a young guy, and kind of on the cheap, and having just taken a whole week off of work and now taking another week off of work, money was tight. So I got a hotel that was like way outside of town. And and so it was good that I got there early so I could kind of navigate and see where I was at, see where the host hotel was, see where the fairgrounds were, and kind of just learn how to move around that area. And so instead of getting on the train like a smart person would that had to stop right by my hotel that was 20 miles outside of town, or whatever, maybe no, it wasn't 20, it was probably like 3 or 4, seemed like 20. I just decided I'll just walk on foot and go find the host hotel today, and I'll see all kinds of farriers and have a beer. So I take off, and I'm wearing shorts, a backwards hat, and a t-shirt, and I walk forever through this. I'm in this big city walking all over, and it's Canada Day. So there's like parades and, celebrations and people partying, big old time. And I think I left at like 8 in the morning, and I finally found the host. You didn't have GPS on your phone back then or anything.
Yeah.
I was just walking.
Yeah.
And, looking at the city, it didn't look that big. There's big buildings, but it's like, it ain't that big. Oh, geez, I was so wrong. I think I finally found the host. I finally stumbled in the host hotel at like 7 at night. So I've been I've been walking nonstop for like 10 or 11 hours or something. I get in there, I walk into the bar, and I'm looking around. I'm like, there's not a single horseshoer in here. This is crazy. So I order a beer. I sit down at a little table. I'm kind of deflated. I'm like, man, what am I going to do? Nobody's here, and got this long old walk ahead of me, and all of a sudden the door opens and I see Jay Sharp walk in, man, and I know who he is from seeing him in the magazines. And I'm like, holy cow, that's Jay Sharp. And he just he looks around, and then walks straight up to my table and sits down, and he says, well, y'all practiced up? And I'm like, how the hell does he know I'm a farrier? I look more like a gangbanger or a skateboarder. He must have just smelled it on me. And I says, oh, yes, sir, I've been practicing hard, Mr. Sharp. And I introduced myself, and he just sits there with me all night, and tells me stories. And he says, I told him it was my first time. And he goes, well, you stick with me. I'll show you around. I says, all right. And so, the next morning I get on the train, and here I'm taking this train every day thinking, man, this is so nice that Calgary has this free transit system for people to use. I didn't know you had to buy a ticket. I was just riding that thing for free every day. And so I would take the train. I was like the very last stop of the train. I would take it all the way to the host hotel, and then, get off and go find Jay. And then we'd get on the train and go to the Stampede Park together. And, everybody'd get off at the one stop, and Jay would go, don't get off here. And so we'd go to the next one, and we'd get off there, and we'd walk through the gate, and then you'd go up these stairs, and there was like this sky tunnel thing, and we'd walk on that, and you wouldn't have to go through the crowd of people. We'd be up there in the climate control, and on the walls they had like every poster of every Calgary that's ever happened, since the early 1900s or 1800s or whatever it was. And Jay would tell me, yeah, I competed here this year and that year in the, bronc riding or calf tying or whatever, like I'm sitting there thinking, really? And then he's like, yeah, and I was here in the blacksmiths competition this year. And, he'd tell me all these stories, and I would think, yeah, sure you were competing here in the 40s and 50s in the rodeo. And then one day we're sitting there watching the competition, and I'd already had my go, and Jay says, you want to go to the rodeo? And I says, yeah, let's go. He goes, I'll show you a shortcut. And I go, okay. So we walk outside the tent, and and they've got the temporary horse pen set up there. And Jay starts to climb. He's got a crutch, and he tucks it under his arm. He starts climbing over the fence. I go, where are you going? And he goes, this is a shortcut. So we climb over the one fence, and then we walk through the horse pen, and we start to climb over the second panel, and there's a floor crew guy in there cleaning the pen. And he goes, oh, let me help you with that crutch, sir. And Jay says, by God, if you touch this crutch, I'll beat you to death with it.
Oh, we lost him mid-story.
He'll be back.
Oh, he'll be back.
We can't get rid of him that easy.
This commercial break is brought to you by...
Yeah. Man, I love having Travis on. He's got good stories, and he's a natural at
fun.
it. And he almost needs to have a Master Koonzagi podcast.
His own radio show.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's already been 2.5 hours.
I'm back.
Got ya.
All right. Where did you guys lose me? Did you?
When he was crawling over the panels.
Okay. And so did you hear about the guy that was cleaning the pen?
No.
Yeah, he just started.
Yeah.
Okay. So he reaches for Jay's crutch and he says, "Let me help you with that, sir." And Jay says, "If you touch that crutch, by God, I'll beat you to death with it." And he makes his way over there, and then we climb another couple of panels, and then we go to the back side of the far side, the back competitors' entry area of the arena, and their security comes up, and Jay flashes his blacksmith's badge, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, sir, that's not going to work here. You have to be an actual contestant in the rodeo to come in through this gate." And Jay starts to chew on him a little bit, and right then, a older gentleman, not quite as old as Jay, but probably in his late 70s, comes walking up, and he's like a bigwig there, and he stops and he goes, "Oh, Mr. Sharp." And he looks at the security guard. He says, "He's good. He can come through here. He's competed here many a times." And they let us right in, and then me and Jay went to like the top of up to the nosebleed section in the bleachers, man. And it was a hot day. And we plopped down in a couple of seats, and there's like nobody up there. And Jay kicks sideways, and crosses his feet, got him stretched out as far as they can, and he's just fully leaned onto me, got his whole half of his back on my shoulder, and I mean, just we're sweating like slaves up there. And we're watching the rodeo, and he'd talk to me, and he'd turn, and his face would be right in mine, and he'd just be spitting, and got the pipe in there while he's talking to me about the rodeo, and I was just sitting there thinking, you know what, this is a good thing, because if I get just a little tiny bit of Jay's DNA, like maybe it'll make me more like Jay.
Exactly.
And after that, every year, everywhere I'd see Jay, man, we'd hook up and we'd go off together and go do stuff. And I stood next to Jay during so many goes at Calgary, watching the best guys in the world have a go, and Jay would pick their go apart, the whole time. And so I was just getting this feedback from like one of the greatest, farrier blacksmith minds of all time.
Oh yeah.
And he would tell me, he's like, "This is where they should have a 3-pound hammer. This is where they should be using a cross peen. They should have a pair of tongs like this." And he was spot on every time, And so I learned so much just standing there listening to Jay, Amazing guy.
Oh man, I think that's something that like, if I could like, and I'm talking to guys my age too, as well as like the younger generation, when you go to these events, don't be so worried about screwing off, hanging out, drinking with your other buddies that are your same age. Find one of those older good guys and just hang out with them, man. Just soak it in, because it's like they're gonna be spitting so much knowledge. Is that like we go to competitions now, and you'll see Jim Poor watching a go by himself.
Oh no!
Where Jim's doing that, where it's like if somebody just stand there, like if you could just stand there and like Jim will tell you that same rundown. You know what I mean? He'll give you all the information in the world. Where it's like, but you have to just be like, I'm gonna not hang out with my buddies right now. You know what I mean? Like it's just like I'm gonna soak in some knowledge here,
dude.
I wish more people would do that, because it is a missed opportunity.
If I'm there and I see that, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go stand next to Jim Poor and learn from Jim Poor.
Exactly. Man, soak it in when you can.
Jeez. Yeah, that's crazy.
Man.
I definitely, now that I just have one client, that's such a unique thing. There's not, like, I was talking to Lee Green the other day down at the shoeing shop, and he asked me what I was up to. I told him, and he goes, he just shook his head. He goes, there's so few horseshoers that have ever found that opportunity to just have one client. He goes, "I sure hope they're taking care of you." And I said, "Oh, they are. They're a good client. The people are great."
Yeah.
And
just kind of trying to soak up knowledge. I think we're kind of getting to a point where probably good place to wrap up this episode. I think this is a great number 2. Battery life on our devices are starting to run low, and I think your internet's giving us quite a bit of grief. And try to get ready for episode number 3 in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a good.
Are you guys high?
Because we're almost at 3 hours.
Are you guys hiring? Do you need another? Like, I've got some spare time, man. I could use another job.
It's perfect. The pay is horrible.
Yeah.
Well, I'm used to that.
Don't expect to earn much.
Oh, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, Joe Rogan's making like 300 million. Come on,
dude,
guys.
it's great. We'll have to. Yeah. Took him a while to get there. We're on the long road here.
Oh, okay. No,
we're on the long road.
Man,
we'll definitely not take 2 years to do this again. We'll have to reschedule again here soon. Just keep it going.
If I could, man, a couple of little key points on kind of to touch back on everything we kind of talked about, but kind of bring it all together.
Yeah,
man. As far as like, say, Nick getting hurt, me having one client, being home with my family, like farrier business. Like we didn't do a whole lot on that, but I used to say, man, what if you took and doubled your price overnight? What would be the worst that could happen? Say you lost half of your clientele. Well, you'd still be making the exact same money because you doubled your price, but your expenses would be cut in half as far as supplies go. So you'd be making the same money, you'd be spending half the time working, and you'd be spending you'd have half as much going out in your supply bill and stuff. Like, to me, that just made a lot of sense, but I never had
the wear and tear on your body.
Yeah, I never had the cojones to do it. I never really knew anybody that did it, but in essence, my business kind of morphed into that. Like, that kind of happened by accident as I moved and changed my life by moving out here. And so it is a real thing. Like, I shoe less than half, way less than half of the horses I ever shod. Maybe a quarter, maybe a tenth. I don't know. Well, probably a tenth compared to when I was at my busiest. And I make as much as I ever made. My expenses are bare bones, and so there's that whole thing that profit margin is a real thing. Like, your profit margin can go through the roof when you decrease the number of horses you shoe. And then if you think about, like, you're going to extend your viable service life of your body by shoeing less horses all the time. I'm not saying everybody should double your prices, but man, if you're at that point where you're shoeing a ton of horses and you're barely scraping by, maybe you're not even scraping by, maybe you're getting in more and more debt every month, and you're just treading water, and you're killing yourself at work to do it. Like, seriously, sit down and put pen to paper, look at your taxes, and look at what you're bringing in, and look at what's going out, and look at how much time you're gone from home, and you're getting under those bad horses, to keep that money trickling in to basically support your habit of being a horseshoer. Make some serious changes, man. Don't be afraid. Bump that price up.
Yep.
If you lose people over price, that's probably the best thing that could ever happen to you. Because the people that will fire you over money are the same people that will put you under a horse that could kill you just because they want to get that thing done and sold or whatever they want to do. We got to be smart, man. It's very dangerous. And even if you're working on the best horses in the world, it's going to wear you out. So, you only got X amount of horses in you. Use them wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Think about your families and your relationships.
No, I think that's a great deal.
Yeah, put time into your relationships, and especially your home relationships, your wife, your kids, your husband, whatever you got going. Like, put as much effort into that as you do your business and your competition, and life will be good. Be careful out there. And did you guys want another Mount Rushmore?
Do you got another one?
If you want to throw, want to throw one out, do it.
I probably didn't get enough last time, but Nick Rossi definitely is on my Mount Rushmore, and I kicked myself in the butt for not doing that last time. Nick's, like I said, great horseshoer, great guy, best of friends. I put Monty Schwaneveld on there. my other best friend, Jason Job, Jerry Schwanevelt, some of my oldest and best friends, and then Dirk Ballard, who really helped me get me going, and Noel Portelli, the guy who I first met when I wanted to get into making shoes and competing. Like, all those guys have been best of friends, always there for me, put up with my stupidity over the years, and really have been great horseshoers too, and guys that I really look up to. So, yeah. Oh, and Bob Nett.
Those are awesome, dude.
I
it's
forgot,
awesome that you were.
I forgot Bob Nett. He was a big influence on me too, and he passed away years ago. But he was a great local horseshoer and a great blacksmith, and he was a big part of like the NCC and the California Blacksmiths Association. He was a great man.
Oh, it's awesome how much you always remember everybody that led you to the places that you are, and how humble and how much you were always thinking about the horse, man. It's something that I really admire about you.
Likewise.
I appreciate you taking family time away and personal time away to come here and spread some good word.
Oh, man, I appreciate you guys saying that. One thing I did forget, I wanted to tell, we didn't tell stories about when we all first met last time, did we? Right?
I don't think so.
Riley, you listened to the old pod. I don't think I did. Because maybe I mentioned that time, Gavin, when we were at Money's and you were all sick. Did I tell that one last time, Gavin?
I don't really remember. I don't think so.
Yeah, it was you and Jukes were there.
Was that at the team benefit clinic?
No. It was just a time when
we were getting ready because Shane Carter was judging the the finals in Vegas that year.
Yep.
And we came out just to practice with you out of Money's. Me and Jukes drove out.
Yeah. And so Jukes and Money kind of teamed up and were doing their thing. And so me and you were working together a bunch, and, I'd grab your hammer and be like, hey, check this out, and it turned out you were sick as a dog, man. And by the time I got home, man, I had green snot coming out of my eyes and nose, and it was gnarly. but it was worth it, man. And then Riley, do you remember?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Riley, do you remember that time you asked me to strike for you in the Tool and Fuller?
Dude, like vaguely, yes. It was like one of my first Tool and Fuller goes.
Yeah. But yeah, just to finish it out, Riley, I remember you came up and asked me to strike for you, and I only kind of knew about you because some guys that were working with me had showed me, I think it was Facebook or something, but some pictures of tools you'd made, and I was like, dang, that guy is a hand. And you had made that emblem for the front of the truck, that hood ornament.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw that. I was like, dang, man, this dude is a hand. Well, then you came up and said, hey, would you strike for me in the Tool and Fuller? I was like, you bet, man. And so we get down there, man, and you put your block in, and I'm looking at your block. I'm like, man, that's way too shallow. And then you pull out like this old J-Sharp D-eyed Fuller, and it looks like a wood splitting hatchet, And I'm like, what's he gonna do with that? So then the go starts, man, and we got like 8 inches of 5/8 square, and I get it all nice and hot, and we start running it through that block, and it grows to like 15 inches or something, man, because the block is so shallow, and like every single pass, man, it's like there's more flashing than there is going in the block, and and then you start turning it into a shoe, and then you get that J-Sharp D-eyed Fuller, and it's just like it's exploding the top of this fullering like a mushroom. It's just, and I pretty soon I start thinking, okay, I'm getting punked.
Yeah.
I'm getting punked. This isn't real. There's no way this is this guy's. there's no way this is.
It was
block.
very real.
There's no way this is his Fuller. There's no way. Not with the stuff I saw on Facebook. And so sure enough, man, I looked down, and sure enough, your name with the go is on the anvil stand. I'm like, okay, I guess this is really happening.
Yeah.
So we get through and get done, and I was like, I picked up that Fuller. I go, dude, why would you bring this to a contest? I go, this belongs in a museum, not in your toolbox. I'm like, this is not for Tool and Fuller. I'm like, why don't you save one of those nice Fullers you make and bring it? And you're like, well, because I could barely keep up with the orders I have, man. I got to sell everything nice I make. So I was like, all right, bro, here's what you're going to do. The next nice Fuller that comes out is Riley's Fuller.
Yeah.
You remember that?
that go, and once, yeah, I do. Like, I remember that, and I remember having quick strike for me in a tool and fuller go, and those are two of the most embarrassing goes ever because they were just so horrible. And like, they just made such piles of shit, and it's just like, man, this sucked. This really sucked. I'm gonna practice next time. Like, oh, that's good, dude. All right, thanks everybody. We lost him. That's a good one. We'll do a part 3 coming up.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks Travis for taking time with us.
Yes, sir.
Next time.
See you guys.
See you guys next time.